I'd like to call to order the regular city commission meeting for August 17th, 2020. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Drosky,
Here.
Commissioner Hudak,
Here.
Commissioner Preston,
Here.
Vice Mayor Parnes,
Here.
Mayor Yance.
Here. Commissioner Hudak, would you mind doing us the honor of doing the Pledge of Allegiance?
It would be my honor.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. If we have approval of the city commission meeting minutes for our regular commission meeting on August 4th, 2020.
Motion to approve.
Second. Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, acknowledgement of our city board meeting minutes for our community appearance board meeting February 22nd, 2020 and February 12th, 2020. Also for our planning and zoning meeting board minutes from February 6th, 2020.
Motion to
Motion
approve.
to- Go ahead, Michael.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes unanimously. Approval of our city commission meeting agenda for August 17th, 2020.
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second. We have all in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Before we move forward to our city clerk telling everyone about our Zoom meeting, I do want to pay our respects to Haywood Coleman, who was a delivery driver here in the city of Deerfield Beach, who passed away recently. We wish him and his family all our best, and we mourn his loss. City clerk, could you read us the rules regarding our meeting?
Sorry about that. For anyone who has dialed in on your phone or other mobile device, you can dial *9 and that will raise your hand. You'll be recognized by the last 3 digits of your phone number. For anyone who has videoed via Zoom, simply hover your mouse over the screen. You will see a participants tab at the bottom. Click on participants. On the right-hand side, there will be an additional pop-up, and there is a button that indicates raise hand. Once you click on that button, your hand will go up and you will be recognized and unmuted at that time.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We have a proclamation for our League of Women Voters, recognizing the 100th anniversary of Amendment 19, granting women the right to vote. This is sponsored by Commissioner Hudak, Commissioner Drosky. Who would like to do the honors?
I can go ahead and do the honors.
Okay.
The call for women's rights was proclaimed at the Seneca Falls Convention in 1848. The demand for women's rights to vote became the centerpiece of the women's rights movement since this convention. Women's role in World War I influenced President Wilson's support for the 19th Amendment granting women the right to vote. Amendment 19 simply reads, "The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex." The U.S. House of Representatives passed Amendment 19 on May 21st, 1919, and the U.S. Senate passed Amendment 19 on June 4th, 1919. Amendment 19 became part of the U.S. Constitution on August 18th, 1920. Without much fanfare and ending almost a century of struggle, protest, torture, and prison time. So again, please join the city of Deerfield Beach in honoring and recognizing the 100th anniversary of Amendment 19, granting women the right to vote, which will be tomorrow. And we all know, hopefully, that we have an election tomorrow.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Commissioner, both of you. We have a presentation here tonight from Wake Forest. Tucci, do we have making the presentation?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, we do have Ms. Barbara Herrera here to present on a land use plan amendment that they are proposing at their site there, just in the unincorporated Broward area to the, that would be the, excuse me, southwest portion of the city. So without further ado, Ms. Barbara Herrera.
Thank you. Welcome, Barbara.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to make sure if you all can see me, correct?
I
Okay,
did.
well, good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, and staff. My name is Barbara Herrera. I am here tonight representing Waste Management. That's 2700 Wiles Road in Pompano Beach, Florida, 33073. First of all, thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to give this brief presentation that we have prepared for the city of Deerfield Beach to update you on our land use plan amendment that we are currently filed with the county. And we're going to be referring to that as the LUPA, the Land Use Plan Amendment. So basically, it has to do with a parcel in Monarch Hill. And Monarch Hill landfill, as you know, is bounded by the Turnpike, Wiles, Powerline, and Sample roads. It's about a 500-acre site. And we at Waste Management and others in the region believe that this is a vital Broward County asset. Next slide, please. So the Monarch Hill LUPA is, again, a 24-acre parcel. We're basically seeking a redesignation from electrical generation to industrial. And right now, what is located at that site is the former Wheelabrator facility at the north side. And it was originally a waste to energy, or a WTE facility. But right now, it is not a waste to energy site. It is currently being operated as a trash transfer station. And in order for the current use to be in compliance, we are seeking this land use designation from electrical generation to industrial, because the current use is just not consistent with the land use, the zoning that is currently there. So eventually, the landfill disposal after July 2023, which is the end of the Wheelabrator site, we're going to be using this for fill after July 2023. So next slide, please. So I'm going to turn this over right now to my colleague, William Laystrom. He is here tonight representing us. He is our counselor for this project. And I'm gonna let him go.
Thank you, commissioners. I want to make sure that you could hear me. My name is Bill Laystrom. I'm here on behalf of Waste Management, Inc. of Florida. I'll be doing the land use presentation throughout the county approval process. As Barbara indicated to you, the property is located in unincorporated Broward County, and therefore we have to go through the unincorporated Broward County land use process, very similar to what you see in the city. When you look at a land use amendment, the county commission will actually sit as our city commission. So the first stage of the application, we've filed the applications with Broward County, but due to the current COVID situation, we have not move forward at the county for our first development review type hearing, and then we would go to the county commission. We have asked the commission to go from electrical generating plant for the area that's shown in red and go to industrial. If you look at all the property otherwise in this slide for the landfill, it is currently land used industrial, as is the property across the street, which you'll see in an aerial photograph that we took a little bit later in the presentation. It's also a heavy industrial area. And so we're trying to move this last piece from electrical generating plant to industrial. Once we get done with the county commission sitting as the city commission, we'll actually go back to the county again to continue the land use process. We'll go to the planning council. We'll go to the county commission. The application will be sent to the state of Florida for review, then back to the planning council and back to the county commission. I'm anticipating that our process, even without the COVID, would probably take a year to work our way through that entire approval process. For the industrial land use, very quickly, we have taken a look at water, sewer, electric. Because the plant is basically disassembled and shut down, those generation of uses and needs are basically zero at the moment, and will be very little with the landfill. As for traffic, the traffic will continue as it is today. We don't expect an increase in traffic. This is just an addition to the landfill that would allow for an additional amount of time that the landfill would be available to handle major storm events. As you may know, we'll show on a slide later, but most of the debris that we take into the landfill is in the form of C&D or construction materials. So that's the process for our land use plan amendment. Once we are done with that, or along the process, we'll have to file a rezoning application, again, very similar to what happens at the city. And that would also go to the county commission. And we would also have to go through their extensive site plan approval process. Then in a way similar to your building permit process, we have many, many permits, both at the federal, state, and local level that we would have to get before we would be able to build this portion of the landfill. And currently it is serving it as a trash transfer station. That trash transfer station takes trucks from all parts of northern Broward County and puts the trash into larger trucks so that it can be transported. When I say trash, municipal solid waste, so that it can be transported down to the southern facility and actually burned at the southern plant. Next slide, please.
Yeah, you changed it already?
Oh,
There it is. Yeah, there it is.
on this slide, you'll see the current area that is land used industrial and could, over the course of the next 10 to 17 years, be filled in for land use as the Monarch Hill landfill. Next slide, please. And here you see the landfill at full build out. Next slide, please. So the type of materials we take at the landfill include the construction demolition debris, which I spoke at before, municipal solid waste, but we also take yard waste, project driven materials. And what's most important here over the long term and even the short term is the hurricane debris. So if you can think about it, the landfills operate as the nearest and closest place for you to dispose of your hurricane debris should we have a storm event of some kind. The distance to travel to the Broward County landfill, basically in western Pembroke Pines, or to any other facility, would take your road and property clearing probably would double the time just to get there and back if this landfill was not available for those purposes. And this particular addition will allow for an additional 4 to 5 storms. I know Barbara's going to talk about that in a second, worth of debris were those to be significant storms. We have taken a lot of effort over the last several years to work on bird mitigation, odor mitigation, and street sweeping. Barbara's going to give you some more details, but we're now using a falconry program for our bird mitigation. We've done committed to extensive and continuing efforts on odor mitigation. And we're also doing street sweeping as well as wetting down the properties within the landfill. We also have taken on the responsibility to sweep the eastbound lanes of Wiles Road. And as part of our MRF facility, which was in front of you earlier this year, we've also taken on responsibilities to keep the roadways clean over in the industrial area for the entrance exit of the MRF facility. And with that, I will turn it back to Barbara and ask for next slide.
Can you mute your speakers? Okay. Well, hello again. This is Barbara Herrera, and I hope you all can hear me. So wonderful. So Bill talked a little bit about some of the mitigation efforts that waste management has been taking on at Monarch Hill. We are well aware that we are a landfill, of course, but we are surrounded by beautiful communities all over that are adjacent to our facility. We know that what we do here has a potential to impact those neighbors. So as far as bird mitigation is concerned, this has been very near and dear to our hearts because we know that avian pests can really impact property values and quality of life, etc. So what we do at Monarch Hill, we use falconry services, and anybody who has visited our landfill maybe has had a chance to meet our hawks and our falcons and our trainers in person. And they're just fabulous animals, but they are predators and they're very effective with scaring the birds away from the landfill. They don't roost, they don't nest, and they don't eat there. And those birds are very humane in terms of the way that they scare the animals. They don't necessarily kill them, they just scare them away. So this method has been proven to be highly effective, much more so than effigies or etc. Next slide, please. So odor mitigation is also very important to the residents around the landfill and to us here in waste management. We have many different types of odor mitigation efforts that we've taken on here. So for example, landfill gas collection, primary form of odor control that we use here at Monarch Hill. These collectors are installed about twice per year, usually during the dry season. We have a GCCS system, which stands for Gas Collection and Control System, which is monitored daily to ensure effective collection. We have pin wells, and pin wells are basically shallow wells that capture gas, gas that can be odorous if they escape into the atmosphere. We use misting. Misting is usually done around the areas of the active phase, and it is a neutralizing compound that is misted into the air around that active area to help control the odor. On top of the gas collection and the misting and the pin wells, etc., we also do what's called daily cover, which is about 6 inches of soil that is used to cover the newly deposited material of fresh waste. Every day, this is not something that's done weekly or monthly, this is done on a daily basis, 6 inches of soil to cover the fresh waste, to once again add yet another layer of protection against odor and odor-causing gases to escape into the atmosphere. And lastly, we try to limit our schedule for odor-causing activities such as excavation and drilling, and we don't do that during weekends or holidays, because certainly we know that people want to enjoy their weekends and holidays, and we don't want to do anything that can exacerbate any potential odor problem. Next slide, please. So Bill touched upon street sweeping, and if you all recall, one of the conditions of approval that we had for the MRF at Sun 11 was street sweeping. So not only do we sweep along that street, which is just to the north of Monarch Hill, but we also sweep across Wiles, going east from the landfill toward Powerline. And this is very important to Deerfield Beach because of the impact that it can have on the stormwater retention system that you have, or rather the drainage that you have. We don't want to block it, and we want to make sure that it is clear and free of any kind of debris. Next slide, please. So at Monarch Hill, we are a renewable energy landfill gas to energy site. Basically what it means is that on site, and again, if you visited the landfill, you've seen it for yourself, we have this gas to energy facility that basically captures gases, and we power about 9,000 homes per day. And currently we are investing about $1 million in additional flare capacity to not only enhance this program, but to enhance the odor abatement program. Next slide. So what is the future capacity? That is perhaps one of the main questions that we get asked, Mayor and Commissioners. How much life does Monarch Hill have? Well, that answer sort of varies because it kind of depends on the storms that we have coming up. Right now, we have current remaining capacities approximately 17 million yards, 17.5 million tons, etc. The land use plan amendment would allow for an additional 7.8 million yards of vital capacity. So what does this mean? We have approximately 17 years of life left. The land use plan amendment would add about 7 more years. And the reason I say about 7 years is it all depends on the storms. If we have major hurricanes between now and then, that can greatly reduce the life of the landfill. The proposal represents an increase of almost 9% total capacity at Monarch Hill. And what that means is it would allow Monarch Hill to handle 4 or 5 storm events based on history. So that is a significant asset for the region, because I'm sure if you were here for Irma, you remember the massive amounts of vegetative debris that we had. And that was only a storm that damaged a lot of vegetative damage. We did not have downed buildings. We did not have downed power lines, at least not many. But you saw the massive amount of debris that had, and it had to go somewhere. And it went to Monarch Hill, and you were able to clean your roads and get back to normal and access your roads. because of the proximity that Monarch Hill has to not only to Deerfield Beach, but also to other communities in the region. Next slide, please. So I know that I've spoken with all of you about our community outreach efforts, and I am personally here to tell you that I love this part of my job. This is perhaps the funnest thing that I do. It's reaching out to the community and introducing myself, letting them know what we're doing, because waste management is utterly serious about transparency, not only to the cities, but to the residents that are in our adjacent communities. So I've reached out to Independence Bay, Century Village, Crystal Lake, and Deerfield Beach, and others in Coconut Creek. So what does it mean reaching out? Well, basically, we've invited them onto the landfill. We've toured the landfill. We've shown them for themselves what we do. We've shown them the gas collection systems. They've met the Falcons, many of them have. And then we allow them the opportunity to ask us questions. And they've met our district managers, they've met myself and others that have worked here. So with this effort in the previous years, we certainly have taken a big step to make sure that residents not only come and see what we're doing, but they know that we are available to them, your residents, to answer their questions. Also, if you may recall, our Earth Day events, over the last 10 years, we've had over 12,000 Broward County residents come to our landfill and see for themselves what it is that we do. And this is families, children, area officials, etc. And I got to say, it's always been a very positive event, very well received, and we're very happy to be able to open up our facility and let people know what it is that we do. We're very proud of it. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so we've talked about Monarch Hill, we've talked about the landfill and the LUPA, etc. But let's see exactly what is it that your residents see right now at Monarch Hill. So let's go on to the next slide, please. So we visited Independence Bay, and we actually took our cameras and our drone out there to take some pictures. And we wanted you, the commission, to see the view. And this is the areas that are mostly impacted by what we do at Monarch Hill, the areas that can see us. So this is at ground level, standing on Independence Bay, right across the Wheelabrator facility. So you see in the center, the Wheelabrator building. And that building, as Bill mentioned earlier, is basically a shell of a building. It's no longer used for waste to energy. What is right there right now is a transfer station, a trash transfer station that services the Wheelabrator South facility, okay? So next slide, please. So this is a really neat picture, I think. We took the drone and we took an aerial view of the Monarch Hill facility from Independence Bay. Now, clearly this is not what people see because this is at a higher altitude, but I wanted you to see so you can get some perspective. You can clearly see the lake, you see the industrial area in the front, and then you see the building right toward the back, and behind the building, you see the landfill and how it's being filled. Okay, next slide, please. Again, the same aerial view, just a little bit more of a distance. And this is only for perspective. If you look at the center to the right, you'll see the white building in the front. That is Sun 11. That is the Waste Management Sun 11 facility. And right next to it is the Waste Connections trash transfer station that they use. Okay, next. Thank you. This is an aerial view from Waterways. So we went next door. We went to the west to Waterways, and you can see this is how it looks at a little bit of a height from Waterways. And you can see that even when we are a little bit higher, it's still kind of blocked. The line of sight toward Monarch Hill is not as well visible, if you will, as it is in Independence Bay. Okay, next slide, please. And again, we took the drone even higher. So in Waterways, you can see that there is this lot, which is closest to them, but it is blocked. The folks at Waterways cannot see it because of the shrubbery and the landscaping that is along that area. But again, that serves to block the line of sight toward Wheelabrator. But regardless, they can see it at a distance. And you can see the building right there with the smokestack next to it. And that stack is going to be relevant in the next pictures, and I'll show you. So next slide, please. Okay, so for right now, this is a view from the corner of Powerline and Wiles, and I'm sure that you all drive this corner very often. Certainly your residents do. This corner is where our active face is right now. What that means is this is where we are depositing material on a daily basis. You can see that it is above the tree line, but if you're driving next to it, the green of it, on the top, and this was taken about maybe 7 weeks ago. So it's probably, the green has probably gone up even higher than that. I just don't know the exact measurement, but regardless, this is about maybe 7 weeks old. So right now you can see the green, but you can see the fill at the top from this corner. Next slide, please. And this is an aerial, Mayor and Commissioners, of that corner, and you can see exactly how the green, how high up it goes, and then the fill area. And to the right of this picture, you can see the Wheelabrator facility. Again, it looks like a massive building, and it is, but it is simply a shell right now, being used as a trash transfer station. Okay, next slide. So remember that I told you to remember the stack? Well, we wanted to take a picture of the Monarch Hill facility looking at Deerfield Beach. So we took the drone all the way up to the height of the stack, and we wanted you to see what we're looking at, looking north. And so you can see Independence Bay in the north, you can see waterways toward the west, and in between Monarch Hill and Independence Bay and the beautiful lake is, of course, a heavily industrialized area. Again, you see the white building, that is the Sun 11 facility, and right next to it is the Waste Connections transfer station. Okay, next slide, please. So what will your residents be looking at once the 24-acre parcel, I cannot speak tonight, the 24-acre parcel is completed? What is it that they will see? Okay, next slide. So this is an artist rendering of what it will look like once it is all completed. Now, clearly this is going to take some years, but this is what it will look like. The Monarch Hill facility will simply be green, and it will be a mountain in this corner, and you can see looking toward the west there what we are anticipating it to be like. But most importantly, what will your residents see, especially from Independence Bay? So let's look at the next slide. And this is what they will see. Once it is completed, they're going to see green with those two buildings in the forefront, which again represents the Sun 11 facility, which is the white one in the center. And immediately to the right is the Waste Connection facility. Okay, next slide. So in summary, Mayor and Vice Mayor and Commissioners, this proposed land use change is limited to the former Wheelabrator North plant. Monarch Hill landfill serves as a disposal backup to the Wheelabrator South plant right now. And currently, this site is being used as a trash transfer station as per the Broward County Waste Management Global Agreement. This agreement is in place through July 2023. So we are starting the process early. And utilizing this property for landfill capacity, it's very important that you understand it's not going to extend the landfill beyond the borders of the current facility. We're not going to go beyond the border. We're simply maximizing the footprint that we have right now. Monarch Hill currently uses the landfill for a gas to energy plant, which powers about 9,000 homes. And Waste Management knows that Monarch Hill is a vital landfill for the Broward County region for future storm events and hurricanes. Next slide. I'd like to thank you all for your attention, and we are happy to take your questions.
Thank you, Barbara. I appreciate it. I'm just going to make a couple statements, and Barbara, I know you have, Ms. Herrera, you've done an outstanding job with outreach with us, and I know you've asked to meet with me regarding this. I can tell you a few things just based on your presentation, and even without the presentation. My experience, having been here since 2009 and watching another type of fill-in that you did, you showed the shot of the corner power line and Green Road. That was the last filling the area in section that you did. And we were promised a lot of things and how it wouldn't have an impact on our city. And it's had a tremendous impact and the negative for our city. Our residents have complained about dirt, dust, and debris that have come from there. All the things that you said that you're doing, that you will do with this new closing in of this area is what you're already doing. You should already be doing street sweeping and maintaining that property. You already have a falconry problem, and the birds are not really so much the issue. It's more garbage what the issue is. and I will give you credit. I do believe since you've been on board, the odor mitigation has been much better. You certainly have been more responsive, but it hasn't gone away, and it's still a problem. And adding 24 acres of more garbage isn't going to change that, except to make it worse, in my opinion. More opportunity for issues. My other issue is that this is a step in the wrong direction. The whole recycling issue that we're going through, to see us take a step backwards, to go to propose to have more landfill as opposed to figuring out different ways to utilize our waste, why it is being used in the capacity that it's used for now, that facility you're talking about eliminating. I don't know why it's being just used as a transfer station. Quite frankly, a good waste to energy plant will have a lot more life than just a simple landfill. You're adding more life to this landfill, which is going to mean that it's going to have a bigger, longer extended time of having a negative impact on our residents. I think this will kill any opportunity for North Broward to have a waste to energy plant in the future. Once this is filled in, you're never going back. I don't know why drone footage would make an impression on us to make it seem as if we're looking at the Swiss Alps. We all know what the place looks like. Everybody knows what it is. And to me, that's not impressive. The plant is not the issue. The garbage is the issue. And I have a problem with it. I'm going to be advocating against this, both on the county level and to the planning council. I think this is a mistake. I supported it when you did the last fill-in, and Kristen Jacobs actually supported it as well too. And history has shown to me that that was a mistake, and it's not something I'd be looking to do again in the future. So you can expect me to be completely opposed to this. Commissioner Drosky.
Thank you, Mayor. I actually want to jump off a couple of your points. Is Mr. Laystrom still with us?
I am, sir.
Not yet, Heather. Too soon for the picture.
Yes, sir.
So to piggyback off the mayor's point, the waste to energy, I have an echo, so I don't know if anyone else hears that or not. But there's a solid waste task force which is meeting now. Does anyone else have the echo?
Yeah, we do. I believe it's coming because both their mics may be open at this point.
All right, so Mr. Laystrom, if you can stay muted while I speak, and then I'll mute while you speak to get rid of the echo, please. So the county is meeting, there's a countywide task force right now on solid waste. It's composed of members of the county, Commissioner Furr in particular, and then municipal representatives. I know Waste Management is participating in those discussions as well. And they haven't made or come to a conclusion or a decision. They're still debating the alternatives, one of which could be waste to energy. We just don't know what they're going to come up with. Why would you do the land use designation change now, not knowing what the solid waste task force is going to recommend? Because once you change that designation, doesn't it seem like it's gone forever? There's no going back to it if that's an ultimate recommendation that comes out of the task force?
Well, Commissioner, several things. First, under our global agreement with the county, we have to use the property for trash transfer through 2023. And the county staff has advised us that that is not a permissible use in the electrical generating category. So for the purpose of continuing the trash transfer station alone, we need to have the industrial designated change it. But more importantly, I've been part of this discussion for many, many years, and I want to talk about two parts. The first is under our contract with the South Wheelabrator plant, we are not permitted to use the property for an electrical generating plant. That was one of the contractual requirements that we entered into as part of that transition. But the reality is the South plant has about 830,000 tons of available burning capacity every year, of which they're using about 730,000 tons. So they can go another 100,000 tons of additional garbage and solid waste. We do mostly C and D here, which is really not a burnable material, and it's a landfilling material as opposed to a burning material. They could add an additional burner to the south plant that would add about 200 to 250,000 tons of additional annual capacity if it were needed. But over the course of years, what's happened is Broward County has gone further away from the waste to energy plants, and actually the demand went down significantly over the last 10 years. And that's the reason that the plant ultimately was no longer needed, is the one plant can serve the entire county. And if you have both plants at minimal operational levels, they don't operate efficiently at all. And so I think the county can easily use for energy and waste to energy, they can use the south plant and expand it if they need to. Now, if they have another use, all those uses would be covered by the industrial land use designation that we're proposing, whether it would be recycling. In our case, we would like to use it for landfill because we think that's an important addition to the county. But the property as an electrical generating plant is not going to proceed because of our contractual obligations with Wheelabrator South.
What is the anticipated time frame? I mean, assuming all the approvals were to go through, and that's a big assumption, assuming that is the case, when can the residents in the city expect that particular parcel to start being infill? And what is the timeline to tear down the existing Wheelabrator facility?
Well, the existing facility we want to tear down fairly quickly because it's basically an old abandoned facility. All the parts and most of the equipment that was of any value we sent to the south facility so that they could use it both as spare parts and interchangeable parts for the south Wheelabrator facility. So I would anticipate that the land use amendment alone is going to probably run a year. Site planning, probably another 6 months to a year. Our permitting generally takes another year after that. And at least for the moment, we have 16, 17 years absent, God forbid, a major storm event in which to continue to fill the existing facility.
Okay. I'd like to switch back to your colleague, Ms. Ferrer, if I could, please. And Heather, you can pull up the pictures now, please. So as we're waiting for the pictures to get teed up here, so Ms. Herrera, if you can hear me, so once you start filling in this additional parcel, that's going to be more garbage, more debris, more dust. And so I heard you talk about the, dust mitigation, the street sweepers, but a lot of what's happening, and this is, my district, which borders Vice Mayor's Parnassus district as well, is the segment that goes east-west from Wiles/Green Road all the way to Military Trail and even further east to Dixie Highway. And what's happening is that a lot of the trucks and the issues that I'm having is not just at the section at Power Line and Green Road, but east of there as well. And that's the segment of Green Road between Power Line and Military Trail in particular. The first picture that we're looking at is actually as you're coming south on Military Trail toward Green Road. So the intersection that you see in the background, that is Green Road going east and west, and you're coming south on Military Trail. And right as you're getting on top of Green Road, there's that sign that says no through trucks. There's actually these no through trucks at all four geographic corners of this location. If you can go to the next picture, please, Heather. This picture is after you turn west onto Green Road from Military Trail. So if I'm and then let's go to the next picture, and then I'll set the whole thing up. And this one is coming, most tellingly, is you're coming from West Green Road eastbound. This is after Powerline Road. So if I'm a truck coming from the waste management facility east on Green Road, the first time that I can see that there's no through trucks is this sign east of that intersection. By that time, it's too late. I'm already traveling eastbound in my truck, and what's happening is not only are these trucks traversing Green Road where they're not supposed to with the no through truck signs, but then a lot of the garbage and debris is flying off the trucks. And it's once you get past the bend in this road in this picture, then it becomes residential on both sides of the street. So a lot of the residents to my district on the north side, the left side of this picture, are complaining of garbage in the swale and in the median section. And so I'm teeing all this up to wonder, what types of additional signage can you help to cooperate with not only our city, but the county to make sure that the trucks are not going on roads where they're supposed to, and with the additional, debris mitigation that's being caused by the trucks that are coming through this area, because if you're going to fill in that area, there's only going to be more debris, not less, in my opinion.
Can you hear me, Commissioner? Just want to make sure.
I can now, yes.
Yes. Thank you very much, Commissioner. Yes, certainly waste management, we will be happy to explore anything that we can do to make sure that the signage is clear in those corners that you talked about, to make sure that the trucks know that there are no through trucks, because once they get on the road, I'm sure once they enter that area, that's too late. The sign is right there. So we'd be happy to explore ways in which waste management can work with the governing agencies. I believe it would be the county in those corners. And we would go on from there to get the proper signage to dissuade trucks from going in that direction. Also, waste management's trucks itself, we can make sure that we instruct our trucks not to go down that road. That's something that we would be happy to do. Please know that as far as the traffic studies that we have conducted thus far, Commissioner, there's not going to be any additional landfill traffic, because it's not as if all this area is going to be filled at once. We fill it in forms of cells. So the traffic that is going in and out right now will be about the same that, further down the line. In fact, in the case of a major storm, I don't know if you remember back in Irma, but we had a problem with trucks queuing up and down on Wiles, going all the way down to Powerline and causing major access and traffic jams. Well, we're going to have more queuing space at the landfill once this design takes place. We're going to have the trucks in the landfill queuing up as opposed to outside for the most part. So the answer is yes, waste management would be happy to work with Deerfield Beach for the signage, for the cleaning of the areas. We do that right now. The street sweeping that we're doing, we've done it. We're doing it now. This is not something we're planning on doing, because this was part of the conditional approval for the facility that went to you back in February, I believe. So yeah, we're certainly going to work with the city to make sure that we mitigate any kind of litter, et cetera, along those areas. And I believe that we do that now already along Powerline, that we collect any visible litter.
Well, I'm just saying that I think we need to expand the borders of that project. 3 of the 4 corners of that intersection, Powerline and Green Road, are city, and the 4th corner, the northwest corner, is the county, obviously, where the landfill is located. So if you could work with, us and our staff and myself, and not only better signage, but better debris mitigation through that corridor as it goes to Military Trail and even south towards Sample, that will help alleviate a lot of the residents' concerns.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. Yes, absolutely. Waste management will be happy to work with you and the county to make sure that these mitigation efforts are put into place.
Okay, that's all I have for now, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Parnas?
Unmute. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, it's my understanding that Green Road is a county road. not a city road. And if signage needs to be changed, I think we can implore the county to do so. But the Green Road itself is not a city road. I'm told it's a county road. So I don't know that we can control the traffic on there. Perhaps we can. What do we do until, with the garbage, until the cities get together and build a burning plant? We're stuck with it. We can't eat it. We can't move it. It goes to the landfill. And until we have something concrete from the cities, why are we cutting our nose to spite our face? They may never reach an agreement. They might reach one tomorrow. This is not something that the city has to make a decision on right now. This is first going all the way through the county systems, which will take probably more than a year. I sit on the planning council, and our first meeting since June won't be until September because of the coronavirus. That'll be 2 meetings on the planning council, 2 meetings of the county before anything is decided. What do we do with the garbage in the meanwhile? It goes to the landfill. It might go to the landfill for the next 10 years. We don't know. So I don't know that it's a good idea to say no to something up front when we don't know what the future will hold. Will the cities ever get together? Will they build it together? How will it be financed? Who will pay for it? These are questions that have to be answered first. I say we sit and wait until there's a definitive decision of all the cities involved in building a burning cycle plant and where it's going to be. And is it going to be feasible for Deerfield Beach to maybe go all the way down to Sunrise with all its trucks to burn garbage? Is it feasible? Is it affordable? So I for one, would take a wait and see attitude.
Thank you, Commissioner Hudak.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I actually visited the landfill earlier, I guess it was last week. Very impressed with the individuals, the site, got to hang out with Echo the Falcons. So had a lovely time. But the concern I have is if we were having this conversation in 2003, right now in 2020, 17 years later, what would we be doing with our trash? Where would it be going? How much more would it be costing the city? By not looking to expand this waste to energy program and actually eliminating a facility that can be used for it is, to me, very short-sighted. So nobody has been able to answer the question of why we would look to eliminate the potential facility as opposed to actually looking to retrofitting it and building that program back up. Because in 17 years, we're between 10 and 17 years, we're out of space. And the decisions we make now on the commission are going to have some serious adverse effects to the commission in 10 to 17 years. So I think we do need to tread very, very softly and do take a wait and see attitude. But I would really like to know why Waste Management is not looking to expand the waste to energy program in Northeast Broward or Northwest Broward, as opposed to eliminating it. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Preston, and then we'll get some answers from Waste Management on that.
It was my understanding that tonight's presentation carried with it no action. It was just a presentation. And so I think in the atmosphere of a presentation, all of the information that comes to us, the consideration from each commissioner, the consideration from the mayor is things that we all need to look at. And as we go forward, I would like to know what would be the time frame that something may come before the commission in way of an ordinance or whatever that we would actually have to render a decision. How far out are we?
Oh, good evening, Commissioner Preston. Hold on one moment. I just want to make sure there is no feedback. Good evening, Commissioner Preston.
How are you? How are you?
I'm doing very well, sir. Thank you. I'm going to let Bill Laystrom respond to you because
Okay.
he'll tell you more about the process and the specifics. So allow me to just switch over to Bill Laystrom, if you all would. Thank you.
Commissioner Bill Laystrom, thank you very much. With regard to the decision to be made, theoretically, this will go through the county's approval process, and the city's participation will be in the form as the mayor and Commissioner Parnes indicated, will be input at the Broward County Planning Council along the way. I anticipate that process, as was mentioned earlier, to take quite a while, probably a year or so, but we're open for discussions now, tomorrow, in the future, as well as I know we had talked about it briefly about meeting with additional residential groups if necessary. I'll hold my comments to that, but I'm happy to answer the question about the future of renewable energy when the mayor gives us an opportunity at the end or now.
You can do
Mr.
that.
Laystrom, so to understand you, you're saying that nothing is actually going to come before the commissioner at any time? Is that what you're saying?
Your commission, that is correct, Commissioner. However, certainly you could have a resolution, hopefully it's support or not, but that would be the action that would generally take place. But if you would like us to, we certainly could come and give your commission an update in 3 months or 6 months, let you know where we are. That would allow us also to respond to the street sweeping and check out the signage, which yes, that is a county road, by the way. So we would just work with the county to get the signage put up, and certainly we could fund the additional signage. I took a quick look today and it looked like we could put that signage on the west side of Powerline Road on Wiles going eastbound, so that the trucks get a sign before they get to the intersection.
I think that the information that was given by each commissioner, Commissioner Hudak, Vice Mayor Parnes, and Commissioner Drosky were all beneficial and helpful in terms of getting a clearer picture as we go forward. Comments from our mayor, I think, is equally as well important in those things that his concerns for the citizens of Deerfield Beach. It's important to look at it from multiple angles. There is a multiplicity. To me, just hearing this, a multiplicity of information. But there are obviously some obvious concerns, and understanding the picture. And whenever you're talking about years out, there's just so many things can change in a year. And so that as we render information here, on one hand about what may happen in a year or two, sometimes the conversation do not take into effect that things can drastically change within that year or two, which actually you would need different considerations. So I think that Mayor Gantz's concerns are legitimate in from the perspective of which he presented them, but equally as well, the other commissioners, including the vice mayor, made some good points as well. So as we take this wait and see, we should actually think about, how this is going to affect, Deerfield Beach, And Mr. Laystrom, I think it is important that there be a stream of communication with every move that goes forward. This commission needs to know what's going on, and there needs to be meaningful dialogue so that whatever can in the end be a positive thing for our resident, that happen, and whatever challenges that we can anticipate, that they be mitigated because we were able to have meaningful conversation.
Well, Commissioner, we'll certainly follow up on the comments we're getting today with each of the commissioners and the commission as a whole. And as you were speaking, I was thinking that perhaps you would like me to give, or Barbara will give, a written update on the land use plan process and our responses, perhaps on a quarterly basis, to the city manager. And then when the city manager circulates that report, the commission can make a decision on whether it wants us to come back and have additional dialogue, or address something through the staff. It would be your choice.
I think that would be helpful, but I would, see what my colleagues think about it. I think that that's a good idea. And, if my colleagues agree, I think it would be good. If they don't, I'd like to know why, and we can go from there.
Thank you. I, for one, don't have an issue with more information coming from them. I think that's a good thing. I will say this to answer the Vice Mayor's question: where's the trash going to go? It's going there now. One of the good things about having some longevity sitting up here, this isn't my first rodeo. Certainly not with waste management, and certainly not when it comes to filling in another spot within the map that we have here. We just did this. They're still filling it in. What we've done is we've moved the garbage closer to the residents, and it's had a negative impact. This will do the same. And the wait and see aspect of it is we don't have the opportunity to wait and see. We can get all the updates we want, but we need to get out in front of this early to figure out whatever our position is as a city, that on how we feel about what they're about to do. Having been here before, the last time they did this, and what we're currently experiencing, they've experienced in the past, I don't support it at all. It's a bad move. And to say, that shutting something down up front is a bad thing to do, I disagree with that. By not taking action, by allowing this to happen and allowing them to do this, it will cut off an opportunity that you have that you're not going to get back again. You will not have that facility to even be for consideration moving forward. And I think it's disappointing that Waste Management is trying to do this now, knowing that these conversations are going on. The deal with this that they made with the county before, there's been a lot of bad deals that have been done in the past. And let's hope we don't see that repeating itself. I think moving forward with this at this time is a mistake. It's disappointing that Waste Management's even proposing it. It could be a year out, 2 years out, that's fine. But there's a lot of discussions going on, and that need for that site may have a bigger impact on us than actually just filling it in. This is a bad move for the city of Deerfield Beach to support this. Commissioner Preston, your hand's up again.
Yes, I just would say to what you just said, Mayor. I remember some of the concerns when I was on the commission the first time, and I remember the challenges that we were having. I don't remember all of them in detail, but Mayor, you are right that you have been there. And what I will say that you have experience going through this. And I just think, generally speaking, not only in this situation, when you have someone that is experienced in anything, normally what happens after that, there is a wisdom that comes from that. And I think that we need to have an open mind, and we need to listen. The information that the mayor could share with us, I think is invaluable because he has been there. And I think common sense just tells me, just common sense, that when you're moving something that could be considered offensive, closer to resident, I don't know how it could not be a bad thing, no matter what you do to try to mitigate any challenges that you might have. So generally speaking, just to me, moving something like that closer to people, the resident, could present with some challenging moment. But like I said, you've been there, Mayor. You have a certain experience with this and a wisdom. And I'm just going to say to the rest of my colleagues that we should just be open-minded, whether we ever agree totally, but we should be open-minded simply because he's experienced it and all of us have not, like he has.
Thank you, Commissioner. Ms. Herrera, do you have anything else? Mr. Laystrom?
Hello, Mayor. No, I do not have anything else at this time. And Bill is shaking his head. No, we don't have anything more at this time. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the presentation. Look forward to having more conversations with you.
I'm sorry, Mayor. If you asked me a question and it did not come through. Pardon me.
No, I said we look forward to having more conversations with you on this matter in the future.
Sure, same here. We look forward to the same. Thank you very much.
We are now at the public comment portion of tonight's agenda. Persons addressing the commission shall state his or her name and address and may speak for 3 minutes unless extended for 1 additional minute by the mayor. As a reminder, this is the time for public comment on items that are not on the agenda. If the item that you would like to speak about is on the agenda, we ask that you wait until that item is called up for the public comment portion of that agenda item. No comment shall be made related to the personal life or personal qualities of any person, and no language which would offend persons of ordinary sensibilities shall be permitted. And Madam Clerk, if you would just remind those calling in or zooming in via online how they may raise their hand or let themselves know that they would like to be heard.
Yes, if you called in via Zoom through a mobile device or other landline, just simply dial *9 on your phone and you will be selected to speak. If you videoed, please go ahead and hover your mouse over the video showing in front of you. Click on the Participants tab. On the right-hand side, you will receive a new notification, a separate box that indicates raise hand. Once you click on that, you will be identified by your name.
Has anyone written in to speak?
No, sir.
Okay. I do see we have one person in the chamber, Amy K. Tanner.
Amy K. Tanner, 111 Southeast 5th Avenue. Am I supposed to come up now?
No, you're okay. You can speak.
Oh, okay. 111 Southeast 5th Avenue, Otis Tanner Way, Deerfield Beach, 33441. I meant to mention this last time. You know, twice a week, every week, we have folks come by to pick up our garbage, our material. And I just want to say that the guys on our route do a fantastic job. They're in and out. They don't leave one shred of anything on the ground. I really think that we have some great workers, and I know it's a hard job. It's hot, and it has to be a little boring, not very challenging, but I'm so proud of them. They work so hard, and they don't make a mess. I'm just really proud of them. And I wanted to tell y'all, because sometimes we only complain, and I think we complain too much, but they do a great job, and that's over on Southeast 5th Avenue, but they do the whole city. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Tanner. Appreciate that. I hope the city manager hears that and relays that also to our staff. Is there anyone else? Not seeing anyone. I'm gonna go ahead and close it to the public then. I believe I'll give it one more moment. I'm gonna go ahead and close it to the public then.
We are now at the consent portion of tonight's agenda. Items 3 through 9 are currently on consent. Mayor, if you want to hear these as a slate, I think we have one item in advance that we know is going to be pulled.
We do have to pull item number 4. There would have to be at least voted on, or that one needs to be pulled entirely. Is that correct?
Correct, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so we're pulling number 4. And right now we currently have items number 1, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Is that correct?
3 is the first one. I think you said 1. So 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's correct.
5, 7, 6, 8, and 9. Commission, do we have any polls? Not seeing any. Has anyone written in to speak or is in present or online that would like to speak in any of these items?
I did not receive any written notifications.
Okay, I don't see any hands raised on items once again. 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Commission, we're looking for approval or disapproval.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Hudak, second from Commissioner or Vice Mayor Parnas. My apologies. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Drosky,
Yes?
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Parnas,
Yes.
and Mayor Gant.
Yes.
Item number 4 is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, approving the agreement with Paymentus Corporation for electronic bill payment services, waiving competitive selection requirements, ratifying execution of the agreement with Paymentus Corporation, and providing for an effective date.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor, City Commission, David Santucci, City Manager. At the last commission meeting, I did speak during my comments about a contract for our utility bill payment utility bill online bill pay services. And that was my intention to enter into the agreement and bring it back before the City Commission for ratification. The purpose for the urgency has been the recent issues that we have had with our current utility online bill payment system through Central Square, who is the current vendor, and their application, Click to Gov. With the issues that we have had with Click to Gov, now twice in 1 year, I felt it was very necessary for us to move on from their system and to find another system and vendor who we could simply rely on. I had asked the Chief Information Officer to look at systems that would provide us a high level of assurance that we would have a secure solution, one that was also compatible with our existing ERP system, and third, that was cost effective. Through his research, he was able to find a few systems. He compared them. He looked at their capabilities, their track record, their history with our existing system, and their costs. At the conclusion of that, it was his recommendation that we move forward with an agreement with Paymentus, and I concurred. If you have any additional questions, I do have Mr. McKenzie available to answer them, but that's the conclusion of my narrative this evening.
Thank you. Commissioner, we have questions for Mr. McKenzie. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on this item? Okay. Vice Mayor?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
I'm going to close it to the public. We have a motion from Vice Mayor Parnas. We have a second from Commissioner Preston. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Hudak, I'm sorry, Commissioner Drosky,
Yes?
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Parnas,
Yes.
and Mayor Gantz.
Yes.
Item number 10 is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, adopting the amended rules and regulations for Deerfield Beach Memorial Cemetery and Pineview Cemetery, providing for conflict severability and an effective date.
Thank you again, Mayor. Item number 10, as relayed by the City Attorney, is an item to make some amendments to the policy as it relates to cemetery operations. I have Ms. Cassie Warren to provide a presentation, and at the conclusion of the presentation, I will be available to address the item a little bit further and answer any questions.
Thank you.
All right, good evening. Can you all hear me?
Mhm.
All right, good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Commissioners. I am here tonight, as Dave mentioned, to discuss the amended rules and regulations on the Memorial and Pine View Cemetery. Next slide. We are bringing this before City Commission tonight as we revise the current rules and regulations that were adopted in 2015 in order to further clarify for staff and for our customers. The highlighted changes that are being presented tonight include additional definitions, the revision of current definitions, addition or changes of rules and regulations, as well as the service fees and charges. Next slide. We have added 3 new definitions to include the definition of a dependent, a family member, and a minor. The dependent, which is a new qualifier that didn't exist before, it allows us to reach a broader group. Qualification is based on applicable IRS regulations, or also known as IRS tax forms. Family member is defined as grandparents, parents, legal guardians, siblings, spouse, domestic partner, children, or grandchildren. And then the definition of a minor, which is a person under the age of 18.
If I may, Cassie, just real quick.
Yep.
The purpose of those definitions, Commission, is really to do 2 things. One, to provide some clarity on what these actual terms mean, and to recognize that these different groups of individuals would be able to receive the resident rate for burial. Thank you, Cassie.
Yep. We have also revised the definition of the term resident to further clarify it, and it is now defined as a person having his or her place of residency within the city at the time of purchase or death. There are a number of ways that one can show proof of residency, in addition to the current existing ways to show proof, which are the valid Florida driver's license or state-issued ID card, a Broward County voter's registration certificate, which shows on its face they reside in Deerfield Beach, a copy of a current or valid lease agreement, or a copy of a most recent water, electric, gas, or other utility bill. They now have the ability to show a declaration of domicile, and we've also updated where it said property ownership to state homestead exemption. Next slide. Within the definition of residency, a parent or legal guardian may establish residency of a dependent or minor, which, as we said, did not exist before and is a new qualifier. They may establish this resident status by providing proof of guardianship or applicable IRS tax documents. As well, those living in nursing facilities, nursing homes, or assisted living facilities, if they are living in one that is outside of the city boundaries, they may be considered a resident by providing proof of resident status showing that they were in the city of Deerfield Beach immediately preceding their move to the nursing home or assisted living facility, which is now outside of the city. If the nursing home is within the city boundaries, then they must provide a copy of an invoice or the most recent invoice or bill. It has also been added that the city reserves the right to request additional documents and an affidavit under oath declaring representations made to the city regarding residency are true. We have made 3 main changes or additions to the rules and regulations. The first is the addition of the internment instructions or notice. This is a city-issued form that the funeral home must fill out and provide to the city 2 business days prior to the cremation or internment. There are exceptions that can be made. Those exceptions will be determined by the director, and they are subject to additional charges. Next, we updated the plot reservation section to include family member, which we've further defined now in the definitions as well, as I stated earlier, has 90 days to hold and pay for a plot next to the deceased. The hold is removed after 90 days. However, we've also updated this section to allow for the ability to reserve your plot before death, whereas before you had to wait until somebody passed away to reserve their plot. And the final section is an addition of a violation section. What this discusses is if a funeral home fails to provide timely notice per section 3.03, which is the internment instruction notice section that we have added. If it's not provided within the 2 business days that are required, it can result in the delay of internment and or an expediting fee. This fee will be set forth in the fee schedule, and I will address that a little further on the next slide. As well, if a funeral home has 3 or more violations in a 12-month period, the city manager now has the right to suspend business with that funeral home if decided. And the final section that we looked at was the service fees and charges. The service fees and charges are now set forth in the fee schedule. We will be bringing a revised fee schedule before the City Commission shortly for approval. Until that is brought before the Commission for approval, the current fees that we have now are in effect still. Payment for service charges must be paid at the time of issuance of the order of the internment and or removal and at least 2 business days prior to it. And finally, overtime charges will be assessed for any services that are before or after normal burial business hours or on weekends or legal holidays. Normal burial business hours are from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Monday through Friday. And those are the main changes and additions to the policy or to the rules and regulations, if there's any questions.
Vice Mayor Parnas?
Yes, suppose I want to buy a plot for myself. I'm a resident of Deerfield and I don't die for 5 years. Is that possible?
Yes, that's a change that we made in this new policy, in these new rules and regulations.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Preston?
Yes. Under the definition of a residence, let me just take a look at this for a second. Now, you say for the definition is like a valid Florida's driver's license, an identification card, Broward County voter's card, homestead exemption, a copy of the current validity executed lease agreement, and a copy of a water bill, electric, gas, or utility. Just want to bring to the attention of the commission that there are people who can live in the city limits of and they not be able to do any of these things simply because they are people that lived on the margin, people that lived in rooming houses. They lived in the city of Deerfield Beach, but they don't have any of these things and should be given the residence rate at the time of death. And then it says, prior to the city honoring the resident rate, the city may have the sole discretion to require the individual claiming resident status to present additional written documents. I'm okay with that, except I think it would be better if we put alternate information. and I don't know if staff would have a problem with that, but I think alternate information would be a bit better than additional.
Would you like me to respond to that, Commissioner Preston?
I do.
Okay. The spirit behind that particular sentence in that section is to recognize what you just said. And I think that it's what you just said is probably a better term to use. Rather than say additional, use the word alternate.
Okay.
In recognition that somebody may not be able to produce one of the 6 types of documentations that are listed there, and may have some other type of document to help substantiate their claim that they are a resident, and then that could be evaluated, of course. So I don't have a problem with that.
Thank you.
Anyone from the public who'd like to comment on this item? I don't see anybody coming forward from the public. I'm going to close it to the public. Did anybody write in for this one?
No, sir.
Okay, so we're going to move forward. Commission?
Motion to approve.
Second,
Motion, Preston. We have a second from Vice Mayor Parnas. A roll call, please.
Mr. Mayor, before you do roll call, I just wanted to confirm, Commissioner Preston, your motion is as amended, correct, with that amendment to 1.20?
Yes, sir.
And your second, Vice Mayor?
yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. A roll call, please.
Commissioner Drosky,
Yes.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Parnas,
Yes.
Mayor Gantz.
Yes.
Okay. Item number 11 is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, approving the renewal agreement with Calvin Giordano and Associates, Inc. for professional building department services for a 5-year renewal term, authorizing execution of the renewal agreement, providing for implementation and effective date.
Mayor, the item number 11 before you and the rest of the City Commission is a renewal of the existing contract that represents the contractual services agreement that the city has with Calvin Giordano and Associates to provide building services. I have our planning director, Mr. Power, as well as representation from Calvin Giordano here this evening to present on this item. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Power right now.
Good evening, Eric Power, Director of Plan Development Services for the City of Deerfield Beach. Is the presentation coming up? Thank you. You can move to the next slide when you're ready. Thanks. So in 2015, the City of Deerfield Beach did enter into a contract with Calvin Giordano Associates to replace the building department for building service to the city. And of course, the building department consists of 4 main departments: structural, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. And they provide planning services for permits, inspections, record keeping, and processing of things of that nature. The initial contract did run for 5 years. That contract is set to expire. And the contract does allow for a one-time 5-year extension. Next slide. So this is a breakdown of the current building revenues for the past 4 years. And I'm bringing this forward because this is the CGA years. And the current contract is split between an 85% percentage that would go to the contractor and a 15% percentage that goes to the city's building trust fund. As you can see, in each year, the city, of course, maintains 15%, regardless of whether or not the increase of building revenue. And you can see over the last few years, we have had an increase in building revenue. One of the things that we discussed with the contractor moving forward with the 5-year review is that we've had some really excellent years in the past couple of years. But if you go back and look at the building contract revenue for the past 12 years, you'll see that we don't even average $3 million a year. Now permits have gone up, rates have gone up, we do expect that we will average between $3 and $4 million, even in leaner years, even in upcoming years in which there may be a recession. But last year's 2019, even what will be the end of this year in 2020, those are anomalies in the larger scale of the building revenue. So when you look at what is occurring is that in our best year, 2019, the city's revenue for this contract was just over $1 million. Next slide. And in order for us to move forward, we determined that we need to collect at a minimum $750,000 to $1 million every single year in order to fund the building services fund, which has several aspects I'll get to in a moment. And in order for us to do that, when we went back to CGA, we renegotiated that the city would retain 25% of permit fees for the first $3 million of permit revenue. And then after that, the city would only retain 10%. And the purpose of this is that we then get to the $750,000 needed dollars to fund the building revenue fund faster. And we have essentially an assurance at a higher percentage that we will maintain or at least exceed that dollar amount. So you can go to the next slide.
Eric, if I may real quick, just to clarify a little bit. When we're talking about the $750,000 to $1 million, we're talking about the city's expenses related to the building fund, and more in particular. And what this does is it allows us to recoup those costs a lot quicker and at a higher rate of guarantee as well.
Thank you. So what you're looking at now is a projection as if the proposed contract was in place for the last 4 years. So that is what is in yellow. And then you can see in green what the city would have actually earned in addition. And then the percentages below. And in each one of these 4 years, the city would have exceeded the required, like I said, the $750,000 I need for the building fund. And really the best indicator of what this is that if you look at, say, 2016's city proposed percentage, when the city permit revenue was only $3.7 million, it's at 22%. Now you go and look at 2019, which was $6.7 million, and the percentage might actually be lower, but we still gained more money. So the intent of this contract is that in a lesser year, a year in which the building revenue is not as high as, say, it has been the last couple of years, the city still has the ability to retain the funds that it needs. Go to the next slide. Thank you. And so what does that mean? That's actually what Dave was just talking about a second ago, is that we do have to follow state statutes as long as every other municipality does too. And what this means is that we regulate the building funds and they can only be used for building related activities and not what is considered general government activities. So what does the building fund do actually, right? So it does, of course, pay for the building permit review and inspection, which is CGA's contractual services, administrative costs, the imputed rent, and scanning and microfilming building permits, software maintenance and savings for remodeling and repairs for the eventual updates to City Hall. Next slide. And I wanted to bring up an additional note of a state statute that's recently been amended that further discusses and describes what are the allowable activities and costs for building revenue. This actually doesn't apply to today's contract, but I thought it was very important to discuss since we're talking about building department, is that the state no longer allows or permits for city contracts and city expenses to be waived, even with commission approval. And what that means is we still need to find ways to fund building projects that are on city property. In conversation with Calvin Giordano and Associates, what we believe we can do is we can actually charge the city 50% total cost of what the permit would be. And essentially that would just pay for the cost of the review and would not in any way contribute to, say, the overhead or the burden or profit that would go to CGA, and that meets the state statute. So I'm just bringing that up as a informational piece. And with that, I would like to turn over the presentation to Chris Giordano.
Thank you very much. This is Chris Giordano, Vice President at Calvin Giordano and Associates. What we have here is the plan review data for the years 2016, 17, 18, 19, and projected for 20. As you can see here, it lines up very well with the revenue that Mr. Power was just speaking of. Plan review activity over those years have gone up 28.37%. Thus, our plan review hours have gone up 30.72%. The delta between the plan review hours and the plan review activity lend to not only did the number of plan reviews that were occurring increase, but as well as the complexity. And we can attribute that to some of the larger development projects that have come into the city and taken a little bit longer to review than would be the smaller AC change outs and things of that nature. So you can see here, we are completing over 15,000 plan reviews per year. Very busy department. Next slide, please. To go along with the plan reviews, inspections are spiking as well. And just as you suspect, each plan review results in multiple inspections, sometimes 100 inspections per plan review or more. So you can see now we're averaging or running about 34,200 inspections per year. Our inspection activity has increased 82% over the term of our initial term of our contract. The inspectors' hours have increased 118%. Development projects again coming in, increasing those hours per inspection as well. And as you can see on the graph, the number of inspectors, number of hours per inspection, and total number of inspections have all climbed with that increase in activity. Next slide, please. So this is total activity and total staff. Total activities increased 61%. The staff hours have increased 22%. The total staff cost per hour has increased about 15.84%. Most recently, some of those costs have been the increase in health insurance over this 5-year period, fuel, insurance, things of that nature, and as well as the most recent increase in impact to our business has been that to the COVID pandemic that we're dealing with via PPE and a little bit less efficiencies on some of the items that we have to do with our social distancing and keeping the staff and the residents safe. Next slide, please. Our permit times, current permit review times for AC changeouts, water heater changeouts, and electrical panels, we call those walk-up or simple permits, are 1-day turnaround. Windows, doors, and re-roofs are 1 to 2 days. Small alterations to residential are 3 to 5 days. Large commercial projects, 5 to 7 days. And new construction is 7 to 10 days. All well within the Florida statute allowance of 30 days for permit review. Some of the benefits with contractual services are the cost control risk reduction. So with the permit volume drastically reduced below the $3 to $4 million that Mr. Power was discussing earlier, it's on us to staff that department. The staff does fluctuate as work increases and decreases, but that's on us to move people in and out to make sure that we staff it accordingly and keep the high level of customer service, thus reducing the risk to the city. So if we have folks sitting there with no permits coming in that day, that's on us and doesn't turn into a negative impact to the city. No matter what, the city always retains their percentage of permit fees, regardless of the increased operating costs. That won't change. City will never have department labor costs that exceed revenue. The city is immune to operational and personnel cost increases within the department. And this process also insulates the cities from risk due to revenue fluctuation for any reason, including the recent COVID-19 pandemic. More of the benefits, the fluctuating workload control, again, that falls on CGA. That's up to us and our management team to move folks in and out. That follows with not only the day-to-day activity, but also with PTO coverage and things of that nature. It's on us to make sure if our building official is out, that we have an assistant building official there. And if he's out for any reason, then we bring one in from another location, and we always make sure that you're thoroughly staffed. And again, it falls on us for any hiring, layoffs, benefit costs, legacy costs, unemployment costs, and all those risks that go with having in-house labor. It reduces the impact on city support services such as human resources, IT, and management. Although they do at times brush up against shores, it's our HR department's job to deal with everything that we mentioned earlier on the legacies. We can be more agile to respond to specific trade needs with part-time inspectors, reviewers as needed. If a large project comes in and we need to pull a plan reviewer in for just mechanical for just a month to get us caught up, we can do that. PTO coverage, as I stated, it's our job to backfill those positions, FMLA or anything like that. And again, for pandemic coverage, we've maintained a high level of service throughout the pandemic. And then these are some of our costs just with doing business. It's just like any other company or even like the city, all the benefits are covered under that. The city never has any legacy costs or any health insurance costs or payroll taxes, FICA, FUTA, or anything like that that would come from having the staff in-house. The inspectors, building official, and plan reviewers are provided with late model vehicles. And again, in that percentage includes our cost for maintenance, insurance, fuel, mobile computing solutions, uniforms, cell phone stipends, and all of the costs that go along with that. Our employees are all part of our company-wide program for reimbursements, bonuses. We cover all their certifications and CUs and things of that nature. And we do DOT work, so our company is audited each year. Our overhead burden is an audited process for public record as well. Here's some of our superlatives that we've received via email, thank you cards, and things of that nature for providing exceptional services to some of the residents and developers within town. And these range from new families starting out, thanking us for getting their permit done with a baby boy on the way, and they appreciated having the house ready and a peace of mind for them to move into when they came home from the hospital, to Lennar, giving us their appreciation for an excellent job and assisting them in getting their projects built and new residents moved into the city. One stated that we get an A+ on working with us. I hope we get to do more work in your city. Another one stated, everyone at the building department front desk was professional and helpful. The plans examiners were available and responsive. You communicated directly with me to address my concerns, all in order to expedite the permits. And this is just a small sample of some of the emails, letters, and cards that we've been sent over the years. And with that, I'll open it up for questions.
Thank you. Commission, any questions? Commissioner Drosky?
Yes. So while reviewing this, I had very detailed conversations with Mr. Power in preparing for this item for tonight. And I understand, as I always have, is that this is not a money generator revenue source for the city. So we cannot ask for the percentages to be backwards because we can only collect the revenue which goes to support the building fund. So we can't ask for a 50-50 split because we can't justify, a 50-50 split for costs. But my question to Mr. Power that I asked in our one-on-one conversations, I'm going to ask again tonight, is this $750,000 number. You are once again comfortable that covers all of the city's costs? It includes the prorated salaries, the administration, it includes the software, the prorated rent. I mean, everything that's in that number, you're comfortable. There's not a cent more that we're not including in that number. That's it, and that's how the percentages were agreed upon in this contract. I just want to confirm one last time.
Commissioner Drosky, I can address that one. The $750,000 would be a minimum amount that the city would need in order to fund its portion of the expenses. There are going to be years, and those are typically going to be in our bigger years, or excuse me, our busier years, where it would take a little bit more to properly fund the expenditures. But in those years, we would receive more. So to answer your question, the $750,000 is the minimum in a normal year that it would take to probably cover our expenses. And in busier years, it would take a little bit more, but we would also receive more.
And you're comfortable these percentages get us there, and it also does away with this true up that we had to do last year as well, correct?
That is correct.
And okay, that's all the questions that I have for staff. I mean, I'm going to vote yes. based upon that assertion that we are covering our costs, we're not allowed to collect additional revenue out of this. But to me, the biggest benefit is the flexibility of staffing. In the years where we have more projects and increased reviews going on, they're able to adapt, as well as the years where we have fewer projects. If we were to be doing this in-house, and we were all of a sudden get a influx of projects in the city, we couldn't hire fast enough the way that government works to add those bodies to our staff to do that review work. And these projects would languish, and the review work would languish, and the residents being able to get their projects would languish. And then conversely, if we were to maintain that staff and then we were to have a down year, then we have extra staff that we don't have a need for. So we would have furloughs, we could have potentially have layoffs, we would have to repurpose positions or put them in other roles in the city. The flexibility that this contract allows from year to year, I think that to me is the main benefit of this, and why I'll be voting yes at the end of the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Hudak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to echo the sentiments of Mr. Drosky with regards to the flexibility of having a contractor providing these services as opposed to hiring staff within. I guess the question I really have, well, first of all, with regards to the true up, I know that in the past that there has been a lot of confusion that commissioners have received with regards to the true up. So if city manager can get into that a little bit. But the question I have for Calvin Giordano is I know they like us, but why would they be so willing to give up the funds that they're giving up? Eric's graph shows that there's a couple of $100,000 that they're willingly giving up to the city over these 5 years.
Commissioner, the first question I will allow Mr. Power to answer to explain how that will work with the new contract amendment that's before you. And then, of course, the second question was probably best addressed by Mr. Giordano. So.
Perfect.
Thank you. So Eric Power again. You're correct. So we have a true up, and what essentially has occurred over the last 5 years is that we produce a projected budget revenue for the year. That budget revenue is a little bit different than, say, the budget revenue that my department would have or Parks and Rec might have, because this is the amount of money that we're going to spend for, the programs and the projects that we have. The building revenue projection really is just that. It's a projection, and we don't always know what items might be coming. We believe what we know is coming forward based on elements that are through DRC, maybe the economy, things like that. But just, one of the examples we brought up earlier this year when it came to the true up was, super targets. Both super targets came in basically unannounced, and came in with major remodels, and so did the Publix on 10th Street. So it's like, there are things that you don't always can predict. And that is why the projections for the last couple of years have actually been lower than the reality of the building revenue. This would eliminate the true up, which is the difference between what we project and what is the reality. Because essentially what we would be doing is we'd be paying CGA in arrears. So at the end of the month, we would look at what that revenue is. We would agree to the revenue, and then we would send 75% of that revenue to CGA, and then after 3 million, 90%. But that does eliminate the need for the true up, and it does eliminate essentially what we have to go through every single year in trying to appropriate those additional funds.
And if I may, frankly, it forces us to monitor the performance of the contract on a monthly basis, which I also do like.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner, this is Chris Giordano, Vice President of Calvin Giordano and Associates, for the second part of your question. And the easiest way to answer that is no, we did not want to negotiate this contract to these rates, but we do understand a good partner when we have one. To be completely honest with you, it's a 5-year renewal. So it is worth it to us to keep this relationship going, to get the 5-year renewal. We did go back and forth with staff a few rounds to find something that fit for both of us. We do have multiple services in the city, and we do look forward to a continued partnership with you. You know, there's not a whole lot of clients that I would do this for, but you guys have been great over the last 5 years. And to be honest with you, when we were originally negotiating this contract, I don't think any one of us could have predicted last year's spike in building activity. So that you know, that's not what that contract was built for. This one's a little more appropriately built for the fluctuating revenues going up and down. And we want to be good partners with the city and continue this relationship into the next 5 years and hopefully beyond.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public that wrote in or is online that'd like to speak on this item?
No, sir.
Okay, and I don't see any hands up. Yes, now I have Vice Mayor I'm going to close it to the public first. Vice Mayor Parnas, go ahead.
Motion to approve.
Well, before we go with the motion, if you don't mind holding, Vice Mayor,
Okay.
I want to say Commissioner Grosky and Commissioner Hudak talked about you know, the reasoning for going with the contractor as opposed to doing this in-house, and I think that argument's already been made and settled on, and it's something we all agree on, that eliminating that long-term liability for us is a good thing. That's worked out well. So yes, a contractor, yes, but is this the contractor? You know, we've had a lot of good compliments. I would like Mr. Powers to talk a little bit more about some of the performance measures we have in place on this. And I will give the staff credit as far as this negotiation as to why Calvin Giordano is willing to accept what we proposed. That was not an easy number to come to, I can tell you that. Staff did a lot of negotiation on it, and it's been a friendly negotiation, but a firm negotiation. And the 5-year contract is usually not something I'm necessarily comfortable with, but you have to look at the fact that we are also getting today's pricing. We don't know what the pricing is going to be like 5 years from now. That's the same to be said with what it was from 5 years ago. So it's something that I think works best in our favor, and I like this new structure. But I do want to talk about the performance measures. So Mr. Powers, can you talk about that a little bit more?
Sure, thank you. Performance measures for the building department, you know, it's difficult to say customer service because, you know, you get a good comment, you get a bad comment, but we do measure our performance in the building department based on how quickly and how efficiently we can review plans and turn plans back into customers, and how quickly we can satisfy inspections. Those are really our two biggest metrics for the building department. I believe Chris did touch on a few of those in his presentation. Well, we do look at that as a very important aspect of turnaround time, which is something that not only developers look for, but of course homeowners appreciate. The state allows 30 total days. That's a lot of time. You know, the city of Deerfield Beach does not allow plans to be going on in one review for 30 days. Minimum for a small scale permit, some of our small scale permits, like if you're doing an AC or a water heater, those actually get turned around in 1 business day. You do something a little bit more complex, that could be up to 5 business days, and a large scale project can take as long as 15 days because it might have to go to fire or environmental services or even planning. But those are the most important things that we look at when it comes to our metrics.
Okay. Thank you. Vice Mayor Parnas, you have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second from Commissioner Hudak. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Drosky,
Yes.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Mayor, before I vote on this, I just wanted to say that that when I came into office, there was a lot of challenges with my district and the code compliance. But I will tell you that Mr. Power and his staff have worked hard to try to promote good communication within the community, and to mitigate a lot of those challenges that was there. I think that if that had not happened, you know, it would be a completely different story. So with that, I will vote yes.
Vice Mayor Parnas,
Yes.
and Mayor Gantz.
Yes.
Item number 12 is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, approving the renewal agreement with Calvin Giordano and Associates, Inc. for comprehensive code compliance services for a 5-year renewal term, authorizing execution of the agreement, providing for implementation and an effective date.
Again, Mr. Power has a presentation for the code compliance services contract amendment.
Thank you, Dave. So again, Eric Power, Director of Planning Development Services, here to talk about the code compliance contract now. Similar form. So in 2015, the City of Deerfield Beach entered into another contract with Calvin Giordano Associates to perform code services for the city. That initial code contract, which is actually very differently structured than building, I want to elaborate that on just for a moment. When Mr. Giordano was talking about, you know, the ability to ebb and flow staff in the building department based on the demand, our code contract is actually very different. The code contract is a set amount of money that specifically states the number of employees that we're going to have for code services. So the initial contract did say 1 code supervisor, 5 full-time inspectors, 1 part-time inspector. We were able to change that into an additional full-time inspector later on, and then 2 legal clerks. Now, over the course of those 5 years, we've come back to the commission with requests. And one request in 2018 was for a solid waste inspector. And then 2019 was for an administrative assistant. You can go to the next slide. So this is what the total breakdown is for the cost for code services. So the initial contract was $942,000, $178. The solid waste inspector, which is paid from the solid waste fund, and the administrative assistant for just a little more than $1.1 million. Next slide, please. I want to talk a little bit about the code process and the improvements that have come forward in the last 4 to 5 years. I mean, I can run through this list, but just, you know, a couple things to point out, actually, the things that I think really have become a difference in code compliance is the courtesy notice process, the ability to not necessarily cite a person or a property owner immediately, but provide them a courtesy notice to come into compliance before even a code case is created. We did create minimum housing standards for code of ordinances, something the City of Deerfield Beach did not have. We do have a new informational pamphlet, which is in 4 different languages. Our previous pamphlet was only in 1 language. And of course, code compliance has taken on additional responsibilities that were not in the original contract. The plastic straw ban, vacation rental compliance, nuisance abatement. You know, they act as first responders when it comes to the rapid impact assessment. And the code staff, along with planning staff, has gone through customer service training over the last couple of years. That was above and beyond what either the City of Deerfield Beach or CGA offers. Next slide, please. And here are just some additional improvements that we've had in the last few years. And as the mayor just asked me a moment ago, you know, what are the metrics for building? And I stated that for us, it's about timely review. When it comes to code compliance, the most important metric for me is compliance that is adhered to prior to special magistrate. Because what that means is that you have had a relationship, open communication between the property owner and the code compliance inspector, in that something has come to resolution, whether they immediately complied, they requested additional time, there was a conversation that had to be had that maybe went to different departments, but not taking someone immediately to special magistrate where a daily fine can be levied is a very important aspect of the difference that code compliance is now. And over the last 3 years, that, you know, more than 90% of cases are complied prior to magistrate, really says a lot to me and hopefully to you about what code compliance is doing right now. We have a host of cases, even though we have a lot of compliance. We've had over 27,000 cases. We, of course, now do illegal dumping, which has become a very large number. We've had over 5,000 snipe sign cases, over 150 mosquito control cases, just as mentioned, a few different types of things that we look at. Next slide, please. This is a heat map of all the code cases that are within the city, and I just thought this was interesting to show. It doesn't really need to go into detail, but just kind of to show where code spends most of its time, which if you look at is mostly commercial. But I know a lot of people like to say, oh, code's always in my neighborhood, code always does this, code always does that. Well, if you look at this, you know, code does highlight certain areas, but if you look at those areas, a lot of times it is mostly commercial corridors or areas that are in greater need. But there's not a lot of red on this map, a lot of green on this map, which means that we are spread out. And I think that's just something to highlight or note. Next slide, please. So, of course, code services have played an instrumental role in our response to COVID-19. Of course, no additional costs have come forward because of COVID-19. Code inspectors now work after hours up to 10 p.m. We've implemented the county interlocal agreement. Our department is the most aggressive when it comes to proactive cases in Broward County. I'm going to show you that in a second. With over 1,100, actually it's now 1,200 proactive cases. And we have partnered with BSO to address the after hours, late night violations, emergency orders, because unfortunately code can't be out there 24/7, but BSO helps us with that. Next slide, please. And so this is a screenshot of the county's map. And I actually did this yesterday in the presentation. I went back and checked it just before the meeting, and we're up to over 1,200 resolved cases and 200 warnings and citations issued. Deerfield Beach is probably the most aggressive proactive code department in the entire county right now. If you look at this map again, you'll see mostly or almost all commercial corridor, and that's what we've been focused on, and that we are bringing out proactive cases. We are physically going to businesses and office complexes, and we are handing them flyers, we're handing them executive orders, we're giving them the information that they need in order to operate with businesses, and we are maintaining and we are monitoring. And this has been one of the driving focuses of code compliance since March of this year. Next slide, please.
Stop here real quick, Eric.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, early on in this, when the city commission authorized the interlocal agreement with the county, where the county was going to assist with funding of code enforcement, COVID-related activities, I don't think the county envisioned what the city of Deerfield Beach was going to do. I believe that they envisioned a system where folks would go through 311 and they would file a complaint, and then the city would be retroactive and investigate, and in many times be in situations where the violation already occurred, which would mean that obviously the incident that could increase the likelihood of COVID spreading had already occurred. We took a very different approach, and I want to give some kudos to Mr. Power, Mr. Pita from Code Enforcement, to be very proactive from the onset of this, even before the ILA, to get out in front of the businesses. And I say all that so that each one of you recognize that if you look at the business COVID GIS map through the county, you're probably going to see that we have many more resolved cases than any other city. And for what I just told you, that is why. We did a little bit of work recently to show that, because those cases were actually not showing as resolved. They were showing in a different category, and it really kind of made it look like the city was not in tune to what was going out there, when in fact it was a very different condition. But we've changed that. We've placed those into this resolved category, and we've amended the comments on each one of these so that you will see up front that these were proactive cases. And it's important to also realize, and you heard Eric Power just say it, that he was reporting 1,100, we now have 1,200, because they are doing about 100 of these per week, proactive cases. They've continued to do that through this new norm. But I wanted to give the explanation as to why, if you go on there and you're talking to maybe some of your colleagues in other areas, if they ask why, that's what it is. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
No, thank you. So additional responsibilities that code inspectors have is we do attend all district meetings. They are an active member of the multi-agency community response team for FLACA. They do participate in neighborhood walkthroughs, and of course, we provide the after-hour early morning inspections when regular hours aren't applicable. Next slide. So finally, what I want to do is another spreadsheet here, just to show you code services. Now, if code was a city function or potentially, was monitored, ran by someone else, you could assume conservatively a 2.5% increase every single year in costs and expenses. And that's what this graph is. It just shows you what the increases to these services would be if it wasn't the flat rate that we currently have in our contract. And at the end of the day, over a 10-year span, the city would wind up paying more than $1.2 million in additional expense if we were doing a contract of that nature. This is a flat rate contract. Essentially, we get to pay $2015 up into the year 2025. And for that reason, we are not requesting to renegotiate with Calvin Giordano Associates at this time. We are asking that we simply approve the one-time 5-year contract extension. I believe that's it. Thank you. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public who has any questions or anybody who's written in?
No, sir.
Okay. Commissioner Hudak? I'm going to close it. Well, I'll keep it open for a little while just in case somebody else comes in on this. Commissioner Hudak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first thing I want to say is, Mr. Giordano, Bernard Pita is a tremendous employee of yours, and I hope you know that. And I just wanted to put it on record. Anything I have ever asked him to do, he is very, very cordial and does everything that he possibly can to help the residents. So I just wanted to put that on record. He's doing a tremendous job. The question I have, and I know the answer, but I want it to be stated, in the public record, is the cost of an administrative assistant is $75,000. Eric, if you can go into why it's not $14 an hour or $15 an hour, and why it's actually, or if Mr. Giordano wants to as well. But there are reasons why an administrative assistant will cost the city $75,000. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. No, so when we brought this forward to the commission back in December of last year, we did a very similar exercise to determine, what is the total cost of an employee? It isn't just their hourly wage. They receive benefits, there's insurance, and all the other factors that it costs to have an employee, an assumption that there would be raises over time, right? So at the end of the day, that total amount does equal to somewhere between $75,000 to $80,000 was the city's projection. So we felt that the number that they requested to us was actually fair. Again, if you maybe the first year of a person of that pay scale wouldn't be $75,000, but over the course of a couple of years, it certainly would. And then it would actually extend beyond that rate to even higher. So there would be a cost savings over the long term to the city.
Mr. Power, correct me if I'm wrong, though. The initial figure provided to us was 80,000. And
that is correct.
Yeah, we negotiated that
to 75, right? For the reason that Commissioner Hudak just mentioned.
Commission, I will say this, when it comes to code enforcement, everybody turns into Goldilocks. No one's ever going to be satisfied. It's either too strong or it's too light, but it's never just right. And that we had that before, and people will say, well, we've contracted it out. It was contracted out prior to Calvin Giordano as code enforcement. We had Broward Sheriff's Office. I believe we had one city employee, and it was Broward Sheriff's Office who ran it. That was outsourced. So when people talk about outsourcing and oh, how great it used to be, let me tell you again, longevity has its rewards. I can tell you what it used to be like, and I used to sit on the code enforcement board before I was an elected official. It's never been something that everyone's entirely happy with, including myself as an elected official. I will say this: I think they've done overall they do a very good job. It's not an enviable position to be in. Again, for people, and I'll say it again slowly, so some of the tinfoil hat wearing people out there might understand this a little bit better. This is not a matter of they get paid by how many citations they write. Mr. Santucci, am I correct in that?
You are correct, Mayor.
Right, this is a flat rate fee that they get, correct?
Correct.
That's the way it's always been, whether it was Broward Sheriff's Office or whether it was the city of Deerfield Beach. It's a flat rate fee. So it does not behoove us. We're not trying to make money on this because we don't make money on this. It's actually more harassment and hassle for us to go through the entire process than it is to have it resolved. And some of the changes that we've made to help get these things resolved quicker without it getting to the point of going to a magistrate or even beyond is a good thing. So I know I'll never be satisfied with code enforcement, and most of our residents probably won't either. But I've been overall pleased with the situation that we have, and I think this is something that we should support moving forward. Is there anyone from the public that's written in on this?
No, sir.
And no hands up. So we're going to close it to the public then, Commission.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion from Commissioner Hudak, second from Vice Mayor Parnas. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Drosky,
No.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Parnas,
Yes.
Mayor Gantz.
Yes.
Item number 13 is an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, amending Division 9 Unsafe Structures and Housing Appeals Board of Article 2 Boards, Committees, Commissions of Chapter 2 Administration of the City Code by creating Section 2-165 Alternate Board to provide for the ability to use an alternate unsafe structures board, providing for conflict severability, codification, and an effective date. And this is first reading.
Mayor, City Commission, this item before you is the city currently has an ordinance that establishes an unsafe structures board. The issue that we're having and that we've had for many, many, many years is that we've actually been unable to fill that board. And the reason why is that by statute, it is a very difficult board to fill because of the qualifications of the board members and the number of board members you have to have. That is intentionally done, however, because the purpose of the board is to make recommendations on properties, private properties within the city that we should, that we consider to be unsafe and then bring them forward for demolition. So with our inability to fill this board as we've had and we have it in the past, the recommendation here is to change some of the verbiage to allow us to use an alternate board to fulfill the purpose as the city's Unsafe Structures and Housing Appeals Board. Very simply put, the county has a board already and we would be able to use their services. The reason why you would want an unsafe structures board is because the structures that are being recommended for demolition are simply that, unsafe. And it is, in all actuality, they should probably come down because they can be problematic and dangerous to the public. With that, if there are any additional questions, I'd be happy to address them.
Any questions from the commission? I will say this, Mr. Santucci, we've had a lot of difficulty trying to fill this. It's a very unique board for sure. And I support us moving forward with this. It allows us to take advantage of something that the county has in place. So is there anyone from the public who's written in or wants to comment on this item?
No emails received, sir.
Okay, I'm gonna close this item to the public. Commission.
Motion to approve.
Second,
We have a motion from Commissioner Preston, second from Vice Mayor Parnas. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Drosky,
Yes.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Parnas,
yes.
and Mayor Gantz.
Yes.
Item number 14 is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, extending the state of local emergency regarding COVID-19 until September 17, 2020, authorizing the city manager to take appropriate actions, providing for an effective date. And if I may, Mr. Mayor, just a brief note, the previous extension that the commission did would expire today unless otherwise extended, and the governor has extended the state of emergency throughout the state through at least September 7th.
Has anyone written in or does anyone like to speak in this item in the public?
I have no written comments.
Okay, I'll close it to the public. Commission. Commissioner Hudak.
Thank you. Quick question, Anthony. You said the governor has extended it to September 7th?
The governor has by executive order. I think he's been doing it in 60-day increments. So the last 60-day increment goes through September 7th. And generally before that, he would further extend should he.
So why would we go all the way to September 17th then?
Primarily because of your commission schedule. For example, your next meeting would be September 3rd. He may extend it on September 4th. You don't necessarily have to follow his lead, by the way, either.
Okay.
But if you wanted to, for example, I think you're meeting after September 3rd. Well, anyway, I think it's the 14th or the 15th thereafter. But
So
the bottom line is it closes today and you have the ability to extend for 30 days and you've been extending for 30-day increments up until this point.
So if he doesn't extend it past the 7th and we still have it in effect until the 17th, can we have a virtual meeting or no?
This commission has the ability to revoke the local state of emergency upon a vote of the commission. So you could do it, for example, at the meeting directly after the 17th. You could do it theoretically at the meeting right before the 17th. You do have that authority to revoke it.
All right, motion to approve, unless there are other questions.
Second,
Motion from Commissioner Hudak, second by Vice Mayor Parnas. All in favor, say aye.
aye.
Those opposed? Okay, passes unanimously.
Okay, we are now at comments by administration and legal. Item 15 is discussion of potential action regarding extending the suspension of recycling curbside pickups.
I'm on the meeting. Please go away. I'm about to talk.
You are talking, Chad.
Well, let me start off the presentation with the with this. A meeting or so ago in the past, we came before the City Commission to have a discussion regarding the suspension of the curbside recycling program. During that meeting, several options were discussed. Now, in fact, we did a special workshop and then came before the City Commission at a City Commission meeting, a regular City Commission meeting. And at the end of the day, the options were agreed upon and discussed by the City Commission. There was a lot of traction for the suspension of the program through January, or up to January 1st, I believe it was, Mr. Soroka, up to January 1st. Is that your recollection? Okay, so, and we, at the time, unfortunately, we did not have waste management, did not have the ability to approve on the record the night of the meeting that they would allow for the extension of the suspension of the program through that date. At the conclusion of the meeting, we took the necessary actions that the City Commission deemed appropriate through the materials that we presented. And in addition, we had conversations with Waste Management about extending the suspension further as discussed during that meeting. So Waste Management we did have discussions with them, staff and legal counsel as well. And we were able to get that additional extension through January. And we wanted to come back before the City Commission to see if that was still at this point in time something that they would like to do. We have a presentation, if the commission deems it appropriate, to find out where we are today with the suspension of the program. And with that, if Mr. Gressick has got the room to himself at this point, he could provide that presentation.
Good evening, and I'm glad I could provide some comic relief. The joys of little children knocking on the door while you're trying to work. So again, I apologize for that.
That's okay.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Chad Gressick, Director of Sustainable Management, and I do have a couple brief slides here to go through. If we can go to the next slide, please. So as you may recall, in June, the City Commission did approve the suspension of the curbside recycling program until the current fiscal year. And that was really mainly due to the ongoing excessive contamination that we continue to see, as well as the escalating processing costs. You may recall from previous presentation, those costs had escalated approximately 800% from September of last year. So as part of this suspension, we did, in order to give residents the ability to continue to recycle, we did implement some additional recycling drop-off centers. We added one to the west side and one to the east side. And I am happy to report that those containers are being utilized. We service those containers twice a week, and we're seeing them about half full when we do empty them. However, we are still seeing some contamination, unfortunately. You can see in the picture to the right, this is typical of what we're seeing in these containers. You can see obviously some bag garbage and obviously a skateboard if you look closely, and skateboards are certainly not included in our program at this point in time. So those containers, unfortunately, we are still seeing some contamination. Out of the 11 events that we've collected them, we've seen them contaminated approximately 3 times. So you're seeing about a 30% contamination rate in those containers. We are seeing a nice uptick in the utilization of the Central City drop-off campus, drop-off center. So, that is being utilized significantly more by the residents. And that's obviously a good thing. We are seeing cost avoidance. So we are anticipating a cost avoidance of approximately $30,000 a month through the reduced cost of processing these materials. So we would expect to see that trend continue through the remainder of the fiscal year. We did set some sort of a trend here with some of these program suspensions. You can see other communities are starting to initiate similar responses. Coconut Creek has decided to suspend their program for a year. Coral Springs and Sunrise, they are indefinitely suspended, and those materials are going to waste to energy. And Margate has agreed to suspend their program to the current fiscal year. And there's a lot of other communities that are meeting this week and later this month that are also contemplating the same. Next slide, please. So what are we doing now? Obviously, what's before you tonight is we are going to recommend that the curbside suspension continue through the end of the calendar year. Obviously, the market conditions have not changed. We are still seeing contamination, and we would anticipate to see additional cost avoidance of approximately $100,000 through that additional 3-month period. During this time, we will continue and do continue to audit all of our commercial and multifamily containers. Those containers that do exhibit excessive contamination, they are being removed from the program. We want to continue to promote the utilization of those regional drop-off centers, continue to educate what should be placed inside those containers, and obviously make any modifications that we need to either upsize or downsize or increase the collection frequency. We could certainly do that. One of the other items that we're going to be implementing here in the near future is a solid waste specific mobile application. And that's really going to enhance the communication to our customers. Basically, it'll allow us to provide and push out mobile alerts related to recycling and outreach and education, as well as any program modifications that we may make in the future. And of course, any collection schedule reminders. So you would get an alert, for example, if your collection day is tomorrow, you would get an alert that would say your collection for garbage is tomorrow. And then there'll be additional links for additional information in regards to what waste goes where. And then the residents would be able to actually download and print their collection calendar from the city website. So there's going to be a lot of nice enhancements through that system. And obviously, continue to look at ways in which we can reinstitute a really sustainable and meaningful curbside recycling program. We talked about a variety of those items that we can look at, such as modifying the program materials, modifying the frequency of how often we collect those materials, certainly looking at ways to enforce the regulations to make sure that those that are not following the rules, that they are either removed from the program or given additional education. And certainly there are other options that we can continue to look at, and obviously we'll continue to monitor the market conditions and see what may change. Obviously, we're not expecting any overnight improvements to the market. We certainly are seeing some negative impacts, obviously, from the COVID pandemic, and we still would anticipate to see those negative impacts. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Just to confirm, I know the manager asked me before, I couldn't hear because I had a printer going in the background, but the date that Waste Management agreed to is January 1, 2021. Sorry for not answering earlier.
Commissioner Hudak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chad, could you talk a little bit about this waste to energy program that I guess Coral Springs has decided to go to, and is that something that we could look at as well? I think, again, we had the earlier conversation with regards to the Wheelabrator, but that's got to be the future as opposed to just shoving this stuff in the ground.
Commissioner
Sure.
Hudak, can I take that? So going to as you know, the only waste to energy facility that's available to us is down south. From a cost savings perspective, realizing that all of the facilities that we go to drop off all of our recyclables and solid waste is located right within the city limits or within the unincorporated Broward area, right there off of Green Road. Going to that south site would have some significant operational impacts from a travel perspective. But what I will say is what I found interesting in the conversation from Waste Management this evening, which was not known to me, was that according to them in the presentation that they gave, was that they're using the old waste to energy plant as a transfer station to bring those materials to the south waste to energy plant. So that's something that we could certainly look at.
Thank you.
Commissioner Drosky.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Gressick, first question for you is the written backup says it's a savings of 50,000 per month, but your slideshow said 33,000. Are those two different numbers or did the number change?
So we have not received an official invoice from Waste Management as of just yet. So the 50,000 was a little bit of a projection. The 33,000 is a little bit closer to actual. Okay.
And you and I've had long discussions on this issue as well. And the longer that the program is suspended, in my opinion, the harder it's going to be to reinstitute a meaningful curbside program, because I just know driving through my neighborhood that people are using the blue bins now on an almost regular basis for their garbage. They're putting the blue bins out on garbage on their regular garbage day and not their recycling day. So people are becoming more and more conditioned to using the blue bins as overflow garbage and not for recycling, and to reinstitute that mindset, which was never a mindset in the first place, is going to be very difficult, in my opinion, to get recycling going again curbside. I mean, you look at the garbage bin, the recycling bins that we have in the East and the West, and the contamination rates are very high there too. And we discussed this at the last meeting as well, is that you would think that the people that are dropping off their recycling are the ones who really want to recycle, the ones who really want to do right, by the environment and do good stewardship. And even those, and we're even getting it wrong there. So to have a meaningful recycling program is going to be very, difficult, in my opinion. You can whittle away the products and pick only those, that are, that have some value or that are easy to recycle, but getting that mindset to the public is going to be very, very difficult. I've said it at many meetings, when we went to, Ricky, the Recycling Ranger program, and I went to all of those meetings with Waste Management on how to recycle properly, to all the homeowners associations and residents in my districts, the dozens of meetings that I went to, the contamination rate for all intents and purposes stayed the same, and 50% contamination plus 20% of materials that aren't recyclable to begin with, equals 70% of stuff that's going straight into the landfill anyway. And the carbon footprint to take it from recycling to the landfill, you're actually increasing it. So I'm not saying I have the answer tonight, but I'm saying we need to be very careful and very diligent going forward. I mean, a lot of people have, strong opinions on this subject as well. They should. And this is not just an economic issue, in my opinion. We need to do what's environmentally right, but what's environmentally right isn't the reality. That's not what's happening out there. And we can see it just by the temporary recycling program that we have on our 3 drop-off locations. So whether we can, like I said, realistically put together a curbside program going in the future, I have my personal doubts. I really do. And I think any kind of alternatives, as Commissioner Hudak suggested, is potential. If we could use the transfer station, the wheelabrator to, go to waste to energy. Now, keep in mind, we learned tonight that that's only going to be in effect for the next couple of years anyway, before they start using it as a landfill. But maybe our other sister cities in the area, that we can come up with some ideas. Coral Springs, Tamarack, Coconut Creek, Deerfield Beach, maybe there's opportunities for us to ship, to the south location to go waste to energy. But we have to really start thinking outside the box and what's, on these papers that we're looking at, because I'm not convinced going back to curbside is going to achieve what we want it to achieve. That's it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other hands up? I don't see anyone else. This is, we're not looking for an action on this, correct?
I would not looking for an official action, Mayor, but since the action was not taken, you know, I would just like to just get some consensus from the mayor to allow me to move forward with the continuation of the suspension to January 1.
And I'd prefer a motion too, so Dave can execute the document. If we can get that on the record, that'd be great.
Commission, we're looking for a motion then. And well, anyone from the public care to comment on this item? Okay, I'm gonna close it to the public. Commission.
I'll make a motion to continue the suspension of the curbside pickup of the recycling program until January 1st.
Second,
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Drosky,
Yes.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Parnas,
yes.
Mayor Gant.
Yes.
Thank you.
We're still on comments by administration and legal. I have no comments. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
I just have one before we go on to the addendum for tonight. And I would just like to inform the City Commission that our Parks and Recreation Director, Mr. Preston Puzer, has provided his letter of resignation to me today. And so he will be moving on from the organization. He is doing this for family reasons, to be closer to his family, which I can certainly appreciate. I want to recognize him for everything that he has done here while being at the city, coming on board at a very interesting time for the city, which was literally, I think, the day that I assumed the interim role as city manager. And he still came guns blazing and has been a major contributor to the organization and extremely dedicated the entire time he was here. And so I just want to recognize him for that, wish him the best as he moves on to the city of Ocala as their new Parks and Recreation Director. So I wish him the absolute best moving forward.
As do I. Congratulations.
Okay, we are now on the addendum. Item number 16, discussion and potential action regarding FARDA subtenant lease extension request. You should have in your backup the letter that I received from counsel for the subtenant, and this is regarding the 4-acre FARDA parcel off of Southwest 10th, just east of 95. I believe Mr. Marshall is on if you'd like to hear from him.
Commission, does anyone want to hear from this gentleman?
Sure.
All right. Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Marshall, are you there?
Yes, hi, I'm here. Sorry, my internet connection seems to be a little spotty. Good evening, Mayor Gantz, Vice Mayor Parnas, members of the commission. My name is Michael Marshall. I'm with the Gunster Law Firm, 450 East Las Olas Boulevard, Suite 1400 in Fort Lauderdale. It is my pleasure to be with you all this evening on behalf of our client, PRP Finance LLP, which is the sublessee under the master lease agreement between the city of Deerfield Beach and the Florida Atlantic Research and Development Authority. We are, as your city attorney has explained to you, before you tonight to respectfully request a 9-month extension on the lease agreement due to the devastating ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. I'd like to begin first by thanking the city administration for working with us and finding the opportunity to present our request to you. We sincerely hope that you were granted based on the circumstances and conditions that were described in our letter. But please, if you allow me a couple minutes to reiterate with a bit more detail, we trust that you can appreciate the basis of our request. The
COVID-19 pandemic has been catastrophic, once in a lifetime event with undeniable tragic consequences. There have been hundreds of thousands of deaths with record-breaking unemployment, economic decline. The pandemic has forever altered our day-to-day lives, and the process of adapting this new reality has been a struggle, to say the least. Nobody has gone unaffected by the situation, and that includes our client. You may recall that DRP spent the first 6 months of the most recent 12-month extension period negotiating a deal with Broward Health for development of the additional property pursuant to the lease. Unfortunately, the deal was never finalized due to reasons that include the coronavirus outbreak. Essentially, the first half of the extension period turned out to be a complete loss of time. Then we found ourselves in the lockdown. By early March, the COVID-19 pandemic was fully taking hold. State of emergency was declared in the state of Florida, Broward County, and the city of Deerfield Beach. Businesses were shuttered, offices closed down, people were isolating themselves with little ability to engage in the type of contact that was needed to conduct business in the way that we conducted it before. Indeed, most people were simply trying to figure out what was going on with their public health situation or the health and safety of themselves and their families, much less business development. As already been discussed this evening, the state of emergency in Deerfield Beach, Broward County, and the state of Florida remain in place to this day and beyond. While we are finding ways to try to move forward in a more productive way, the pandemic has continued for nearly 6 months, which is the entire second half of the 12-month extension period. Our market research has confirmed that over that duration, there has been no land sales, there have been no lease deals within the vicinity of the area that is the subject of the lease agreement, unless those deals are already committed to, of course, and in place before the pandemic. Equity investors, lenders, single occupiers have yet to confirm what market data sets are relevant to allow land acquisitions or ground leases to take place in this environment, unless, again, those transactions were already in the pipeline before the outbreak. Please know that we understand how much the city has wanted to see something happen under the lease agreement. DRP wants nothing different, but the past 6 months have been a complete write-off. DRP has found it nearly impossible to effectively market the property. There are reasons to believe that market activity is picking up again, but that's only been happening over the past few weeks as we've had this phased reopening of businesses. But it's still an evolving situation. It's by no means business as usual. But we do believe that if we are able to get the extension, that we can initiate a very aggressive marketing strategy with a new urgency to try to bring a close to this development undertaking. We believe that our request is both reasonable and appropriate on the basis of the COVID-19 pandemic alone. But as you know, DRP has offered to provide the city with a payment of more than $46,000, which the city may use in any manner it sees fit, such as supporting various programs that the city is establishing to aid those people in the community that are hardest hit by the COVID crisis. We hope that it's used for that purpose. We very much appreciate your time and consideration this evening. If you have any questions, then please feel free to ask. If I'm not able to answer, then Mr. James Egan of DRP Finance is also attending this video conference as well, and he will try to assist you with any answers. But again, with your approval tonight, our team will immediately launch an expedited marketing process with a new sense of urgency to make something happen on this property. So with that, I'd like to thank you all.
Vice Mayor Parnas, you have your hand raised.
Yes, I do. Being that if we were to take, is this the land on 10th Street and 3rd Avenue that we're talking about?
That is
the strip of land that goes south from 10th Street?
Correct. This is the Florida, this is right at the corner of FAU Research Boulevard and 10th Street, and that would be the southwest corner.
Yes, going south from there. Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Pretty much across the street from the Brandsmart.
Yes, going south. Being that land is for public use only, I believe. When I say public use, like with the university or some other type of non-commercial business solely, I would say grant them the extension for the following reasons. I know that they have been in negotiations with a company and may be able to do something in the next few weeks. or months, it's a possibility that we would gain a wonderful educational facility there. And if everything works out, it would be to the city's advantage. In the meanwhile, we would be getting $46,000. In order for us to sell that land, we would need a referendum of the voters. Am I correct, Mr. Santucci? To sell
I can
that
take
land,
that
if
one
we
if it's
deny
okay
the
with you,
lease.
Mr. Manager.
Okay, if we deny the lease and want to sell that property, we would need a referendum since its value is above the limit that we can sell it for without a referendum.
That's correct.
Okay, so we lose nothing by waiting a few more months and to see if that develops, then the problem is solved. If not, we can go on in the next election. In March, I believe we have an election and it could be put up for referendum at that point.
March may be a little tight, frankly.
All right, well,
Commissioner.
the next election, whenever it is.
Right.
Commissioner Preston.
I just would ask my colleagues, ask the commission to be very cognizant of whatever consideration that is given or extended, that it be done with the idea in mind that whatever is eventually put there, that it must serve the community and that area. This happens to be in my district, and I would want it to be a benefit to the district. I would want it to be able to serve, taking into account the community, the people that live there, and how then do any move of this land best serve this community.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Soroka, you have a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to point out for the commission that currently, with respect to this additional 4-acre parcel, it was supposed to be a building permit was supposed to be submitted for it by August 22nd. So that's in 5 days. And that's why it's before you now for a decision. Also, I'd note that our lease is actually with FARDA. They are the subleasee or subtenant. It's my understanding, and I would want Mr. Marshall to confirm that FARDA is in agreement as well with what they put in writing. And I believe it was to the Vice Mayor's point and Commissioner Preston's point, there are certain restrictions within that lease as to what can be done on the property with respect to public purpose and otherwise, and it would need to go through the white paper process. If the commission does want to move forward and grant this, I do have a couple of recommendations, and they would be that any approval of this extension would be subject to, and I know it's touched on in Mr. Marshall's letter, but really subject to a waiver by both FARDA and the underlying subleasee of any future extensions as a result of the COVID or otherwise. And that language be acceptable to the city attorney, and that the FARDA agree and sign off to, because they are not here today. And that's it, given that the commission has indicated reluctance in the past to do further extensions. So I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Drosky.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, Mr. Marshall, thank you for appearing tonight. You're in a very unenviable position because the way that I see it, I mean, FARDA and DRP have done nothing to warrant this extension. I mean, asking for it is one thing, but I mean, there has been nothing over the years, even before I was elected, that shows that there's anything going on with this property. There's no, I mean, the aggressive marketing should have been done well before now, COVID or no COVID. Any type of, letter of intent. I said, I think in a couple meetings ago, I was looking for a contract, a letter of intent, something to show some good faith going forward that there was some intent to move this property, and still nothing has been done. Having said all that, I will say this though, that as the sole attorney on the commission, I read the letter and I see the reference to COVID in the extension request. And if this were to go to, court, if we say no tonight, and this goes to court, will a judge, side with that COVID argument? Yeah, I mean, I've seen it in my practice, and that's something that I ask my colleagues to take into consideration. But before I would even buy into any type of extension, I mean, not only would the contract waivers that the city attorney talked about have to be agreed to, and not only would this prorated a rent, in 46,000, have to be paid as well, but there has to be some other contribution to the community that show that you're a willing community partner, that you truly mean it, this time, or even if you don't mean it, then at least you've got more skin in the game going forward. This isn't my district, but this is my colleague, Commissioner Preston in his district. And so we have a Neighbors Helping Neighbors program, which was just recently instituted. If there is an identical rent prorated contribution to that program, I would then consider it on top of with the contract waivers, because I would hate this to go to litigation, and maybe this is a bluff on Mr. Marshall's part, or maybe it's not, and that's what we as a commission have to decide. But if he does pursue litigation, then he has his 6 month to 9 month extension anyway in the courts, and we don't get anything for the city out of it. So that's why I hate negotiating in the public like this, but that's what government is all about. But for me, it would take those waivers and the prorated rent and an identical contribution to our Neighbors Helping Neighbors program as a community partner to get the extension.
If I may, Mr. Drosky, I appreciate what you're saying. Unfortunately, I'm not in position or have the authority to agree to any additional monetary payments. I can assure you though that the client is committed to bringing in a use that would serve the community. I mean, we are limited to some extent by Florida statutes with respect to uses that are permitted within an R&D park. And in some ways, those limitations have proven to be a challenge over time. And then we're also, limited by restrictions that I believe were placed on the property when it was acquired from the Florida Department of Transportation. And so, but with that being said, I mean, our client has all the intention in the world, and I believe our client has, they have acted in good faith throughout the duration. They've always maintained, all the carrying costs. They've paid property taxes. They've always met their obligations for payment, lease payments under the agreement. They have diligently, they really have pursued opportunities. There have been some opportunities that have come that didn't pan out for one reason or another. And there have been some things that have happened in that, in the park, and, People's Trust brought about 300 jobs to the community. And so, again, I mean, we completely appreciate the fact that the city has perhaps grown impatient, has got frustrations about how the property has or hasn't been developed. And believe me, in many ways, our client shares those frustrations, but they're committed to working, and they just would like to have legitimate shot to be able to put their best foot forward. And unfortunately, the past few months have just completely undermined any of those efforts.
But Mr. Marshall, I mean, you may not have the authority, but your client is on the line, you said, and he certainly has the authority to agree. I mean, if you're going to show that you want to be a part of this community, it's going to take more than that. I'm going to disagree. And this is where I find, your position to be unenviable, walking into it like this. But I mean, I don't see where they've made an effort, going forward. And I suspect some of my colleagues are going to pile on when I'm done speaking tonight. But there's got to be a commitment, to the city. Yes, we are frustrated, and yes, this has gone on way, longer than it should have. I mean, what we're asking for, I think, is extremely reasonable, and it's pennies to your client. So if they're truly serious and they want to move forward, to me, I mean, it's a no-brainer. It's got to be a win-win. If you want to walk away with a no vote, or a denial tonight, then that's fine. But I mean, that's what is going to take my vote to move forward.
Okay, well, look, this is where one of those challenges of having these video meetings come into play, because unfortunately I'm not sitting directly next to the client. So I believe he's on, you know, he's in New York. And so I just nudge him. So hopefully he'll be able to speak up. Like I said, unfortunately we're not together. So
Marshall, while you're waiting for your client to pay attention to this important meeting that we're having here, I have a question for you. I understand if you're trying to say that COVID has been your nemesis here for the last 6 months, can you explain why your client hasn't done anything with an aggressive marketing campaign for nearly the last 15 years for this property?
Well, I just know, I haven't been involved with them for 15 years. I do know though, because of, you know, I am somewhat more, have been more involved with the Boca campus, that there are, you know, there are challenges, not just in the Deerfield location, but also on the Boca Raton campus, with the use restrictions, and with other, you know, terms and conditions of the approval process. You know, your city attorney mentioned the white paper, the tracks process, and it is a challenge for anyone. And I have no reason to believe that people have purposely not wanted to pursue opportunities, or that there's been any like true dilatory. I mean, I think that it's just not an easy task, and so it's, you know, of course we all wish things have, you know, could be easier, but you know, my understanding from what I've spoken with the client, my experience in Boca Raton is that it is somewhat of a climb, and it is somewhat of a marketing challenge. And, you know, there are lots of suitors, lots of people that look at it, but then when you get down to the details, sometimes, you know, the devils are in the details, they say, and it just oftentimes gets in the way of being able to finalize a deal. But I firmly believe that, you know, I can't make any guarantees, but I do know that the intent is legitimate and genuine, and that they will move forward with whatever time you afford them, so that they can make up for lost time over the past 12 months.
Has your client responded to you?
Not exactly.
Not exactly. Well, you're right. There have been plenty of challenges. I think one of the challenges is when you pay more attention to the Boca Raton property than you do Deerfield Beach, and your client seems to only find out that Deerfield Beach is even in existence when it comes time for renewal on this. And that's the disappointing and frustrating part for all of us. The lack of what I would say participation in this is disappointing. Commissioner Preston?
Mr. Marshall,
Yes,
when
sir.
you first began your presentation, one of the first things that you stated was that your client was available. And the challenge that comes from my colleague, Commissioner Drosky, I think it's fair. But then he says to you, which I think causes, you know, that puts you in a tough situation, that you might not be in a position to be able to make that position, but certainly the client that was there with you could. I don't know if he was ever there. So the mayor is right. There's been a long time with this piece of property that nothing has happened. And I'm not happy either. My colleague called you out. You gave the impression that we could have communication with the client. I don't know if he was ever there. I don't know if he was ever there. And now you're in a tough situation to have to address this issue, and you can't do it. And so, you know, initially I was looking at things, you know, I was on the fence about some things, but I'm not really happy about what just happened. And I'm glad that I have colleagues, Commissioner Drosky, Mayor Gantz, Vice Mayor Pernez, as well as Commissioner Hudak, that care about property in the city and how it benefits the city and how it benefits its residents. Is your client available now?
Commissioner Preston, I appreciate your comments. I don't know if you all noticed, but I had briefly placed my mic on pause, on mute, and I phoned the client. And when I phoned him, he said, "You sound great." And I said, "Wait a second, I'm not talking." He goes, "You're in the middle of your presentation." And I said, "My presentation was 10 minutes ago." And so he must be on some kind of delay. I'm not sure exactly what's happening, but he said, "Please let them know that I'm on a delay and I'm just now listening to you begin your presentation." So,
were you able to come up to speed then?
Well, I can, but I'm having to juggle two conversations now. I can just call him back now and say, look, they want to hear. I tell you what, if I can get him to I don't even know if he can listen. If any of you reiterate your questions, maybe if you give me a couple of minutes, I can call him and bring him up to speed. I can let him know the questions and comments from Commissioner Drosky and then what you have said, Mayor Gantz, and you, Commissioner Preston. But he's behind for whatever reason. He's on an audio video delay.
Okay. Well, Mr. Marshall, I'll tell you what.
I can't explain it.
We'll give you a moment to get in touch with him and tell your client what has been proposed by Commissioner Drosky.
All right, I'm going to go on mute for a moment.
My understanding that the YouTube video is on a delay, but it's definitely not a 10-minute delay. It might be something, a local issue that he may be having. Commissioner Drosky, your hand is raised.
I don't know how the delay is going to be. Do you want to move on to 17 or do you want to wait for him to come back?
Guidance on this?
It's up to you, Mayor.
Mr. Soroka, you want to give me some guidance on this?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Mr. Mayor. My apologies. Yes, you could table this item if you'd like to hear it on item 17 and pull it off the table and come back to it after item 17.
Okay, let's go ahead and on to item 17. We'll give Mr. Marshall some time to talk to his client.
Item 17 is a discussion regarding the Community Participation Grant Program and the process for selecting and awarding funds.
Okay, Mr. Santucci.
This is actually sponsored by Commissioner Drosky. So I would like to at least provide him the opportunity to start the item.
Commissioner.
Thank you, Mayor. I think that the time has come for staff to take over the grant program process. We each received an identical binder with all the information in it. And I thought I heard some traction from my colleagues at previous meetings that we always get into the weeds on these grants when it comes budget time. And so, you know, we as the commission very rarely, in fact, I cannot even think of another process where we are the ones to make the initial rankings. You know, when it comes to the bids, there are selection committees. There's always a vetting process before it comes to us. We are never the initial vettors, if that's even a word. So that doesn't prevent us in the future, you know, once they are ranked and the information is provided by staff, from us re-ranking or giving amounts and different allocations than suggested. But the initial review really needs to come from staff. I mean, they're the ones that deal with these entities on a daily basis, in and out. You know, there's at least a dozen entities on here, and yet I'd like to think that I know most of them on there, but I honestly don't know all of them and all the detail. And you're giving me a booklet here, a nice booklet at that, with information and backup on all of the entities. But sometimes paper doesn't do justice as to what, you know, these entities do, the contributions that they make in our community. the inroads that they have, the participation that they have, the fabric that they are into Deerfield Beach. I think those determinations are better made at an initial stage by staff. And so I would like to see going forward, starting with this budget year, staff to make those initial recommendations. The commission it's always up to our purview to change it. But I think going forward, and I thought I heard some of you in agreement at the last meeting that that's really the way that we should be going forward. I can't think of another example where we're the initial ones to vet it going forward. And I'd like to see that going forward, starting this budget year.
Mr. Santucci.
Mayor, we as a staff could certainly do that. Should the city commission want to see a different procedure for the community grant participation program. Frankly, there are many ways to do this. It's very common for staff to do it. In some cases, it's a decision by the city commission, but it's not very uncommon to see staff make the recommendation, or even a third party make the recommendation on how to distribute grant funds in these types of situations. So it's certainly something I think we're capable of doing should the city commission want to do that. I will say that based on what Commissioner Drosky has put out there to you and the rest of the city commission, that I do want to just make a point that we would like to, as it stands today, the item would come before you in September for each commissioner to complete their rankings and then have additional dialogue on the dais to ultimately come up with the recommendation of how the grant funds would be distributed as they have been proposed in the proposed fiscal year 21 budget. However, if the commission wants to go in another direction, I believe that we would have the ability, and by other direction, I mean have staff make the recommendations and the analysis, then we could move forward with the recommended budget and of course the adoption at the will of the commission, and then staff could subsequently make the determination based off of the funding that's been provided.
Okay, Commissioner Preston.
I think that this might be an effective way of accomplishing this task. However, I think that the window is still open, that if a particular elected officials would look at a category or look at who money is going through and have some insight as to why those numbers could be changed, then it could be good. I just think that that flexibility should be there because so many of the elected officials are out and about. And when we look at these different organizations and the money that they receive, it may be effective that we look at maybe one organization a little bit differently because of particular needs or whatever. But at least the window would be open to bring that information you know, to the city manager. And that's where I'm a little confused. Would we talk to the city manager and staff and say, this is my feeling on this? Or do you wait to come to the commission?
Well, Commissioner, I think we would internally need to work on the framework a little bit. But the way I would imagine it at this moment in time would be that we would go through the same application period as we do today. Those agencies, those nonprofits, organizations who did submit a request for grant funding will be vetted by staff with an ultimate recommendation that would come before the city commission for approval discussion, similar to the way you would see a typical competitive process.
So the only time that a commissioner would have input would be at the city commission meeting. Is that what you're saying?
For the public discussion, correct, Commissioner. And again, we would have to, even with the discussion that we're having today, we would just, we would still need to come back to the commission with a change to that particular policy for approval. So if there's some input that you have at this moment, we can certainly take that as we would have to make a policy change.
Okay, thank you.
So where are we moving forward with this? Want to make a motion, Commissioner Drosky? We're going to take action. Is the public, anyone from the public care to comment on this item? I'll close it to the public. Commissioner Drosky.
Yeah, I mean, to answer, I'll make the motion, but to answer Commissioner Preston's question, I mean, it was never the intent for staff's decision to be final, that the commission should always have the final say. It's just for staff to do the initial research and rankings, and then and then it would be up to us to make the final, decision. And we can always reallocate as need be, but for them to do the heavy lifting, so to speak. So with that, and City Attorney, I may not get the motion 100% right, but it's a motion to make a policy change to allow staff to make the initial rankings on the community grant participation program.
Yeah, I think that works. Directing staff to do that. That works. And we'll bring it back to you the next meeting if that's the commission's pleasure.
Looking for a second to that?
Well, I have a question. When you say initial rankings, are you referring to the dollar amounts as well?
The dollar amount, Commissioner, is approved through the budget process.
That's the final bottom line dollar amount. I mean the dollar allocations to each of the requesting parties.
Correct.
So just to reiterate, so the ranking would include their number on the hierarchical scale, and then the number that they're requesting, and the number that staff is recommending be provided.
Yes, staff would make the recommendation of the organizations to receive the funding and the amounts.
All right, I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. We could go back to our previous item.
This is the discussion and potential action regarding the Florida subtenant lease extension request.
Seeing if Mr. Marshall's available.
Yes, I'm Mayor Gantz. I'm here, and fortunately, after a series of frantic text messages and phone calls, I do have Mr. Egan. He had to jump onto his phone and just dial in, and so he is on now and should be unmuted. So I don't know if maybe we want to go back to Commissioner Drosky's comments earlier, or what, but he definitely needs to be brought up to speed, I think.
Commissioner Drosky, you want
to? Yes. So Mr. Egan, are you with us? You can hear me?
Mayor, he needs to dial *6 on his phone to unmute. We cannot unmute him.
Sure.
Yeah, I just told him that.
Okay, thank you.
I don't want to have to say it a third time, so I want to make sure.
Oh, please don't. Please don't.
Am I good? Well, I'm gonna go anyway, and hopefully he's listening. So
I can see him on the participant list.
Okay, as long as he can relate, I see him on there as well. Go ahead, Mr. Drosky, Commissioner
Okay.
Drosky.
Thank you, Mayor. So my concern is, as much as of a willing participant as DRP has wanted to be, there's been absolutely no activity, not only for the COVID period in the last couple months, 6 months or whatever it's been, but not only for, the year. This is a year extension that we gave. Nothing has happened the last year. And nothing really has happened the last 15 years, as the mayor stated, with this respect to this particular project. You got to show that you want to be a willing, community partner with us moving forward, that this just isn't a flyer of an extension that you want. And if you get it, great. And if you don't, great as well. So the proposal that I came up with is that there's a series of contractual waivers that the city attorney would want you to agree to, which I think is the minimum. In addition, you would propose a $46,000 number and change with respect to prorated rent. I think that gets you most of the way there, but I mean, you've got to really show that you are serious and want to be a community partner to Deerfield Beach. And I'm looking for an identical amount of the $46,000 and change to our Neighbors Helping Neighbors program, which is a newly instituted program here in the city of Deerfield Beach to help those in most need, suffering through the coronavirus, those that are unable to, make payments on certain bills. And this program is intended to help those in a time of need, which is exactly the community partnership we be looking for going forward. And if you can come to agreement on those 3 items, I would be inclined. I wouldn't be jumping up and down about it, but I would be inclined to go forward with the extension request to show that you actually have some skin in the game going forward.
Commissioner Drosky, I just spoke to the client on the phone, and he says he keeps getting a message that says he's hitting *6, but he's getting a message that says he can't unmute himself. I don't know if there's something the host needs to do, but I can't tell you how frustrating this is.
I've been trying to unmute him since I recognized his number, and
Yeah.
it's not coming off.
I have no answers.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes, sir.
why don't you can talk to him. It would be better if he could talk to us, but you can talk to him. You heard what Commissioner Drosky said. Simply ask him that and see what his answer
Yeah,
is.
I believe he heard as well, so I'm calling him now.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just said I'm unmuted. Hello, this is Jim Egan.
Mr. Egan, we can hear you. Thank you. Welcome.
Yes, my apologies for the technical difficulties. I thought I was online, and Mike pointed out to me that I was listening to a delayed broadcast. And I was listening through it all, including the cemetery discussion and all the other things that were on the agenda this evening. So I very much appreciate your time and the opportunity to speak briefly with you. And I did hear some of the comments on the subject here. What I would add, just as a little bit of background here, is that our client has been a what I would refer to as a good citizen as it relates to this site. And I know that's in some ways not readily apparent to some of the commissioners because there hasn't been much action on the site over the last few years. But my client has gone through numerous efforts and spent a lot of money to try to make something happen at the site. I mean, the People's Bank was an example of it, and we had hoped to sort of duplicate that effort and end up with something that would create the jobs for the city of Deerfield and accomplish some of the other goals that were originally set out when this was set up in the land lease structure that it's been set up in. We dutifully pay our land lease payments every year to Florida, our real estate taxes, and all the expenses associated with the site. We've entertained numerous tenants, prospects at the site. We've brought many of these to the city. We've talked with the city about them, and the city's always had a preference for a particular type of tenant at this site. Unfortunately, you know, as the real estate business goes, many of the tenants that are best suited for this site are not necessarily the best fit for what the city is trying to accomplish here. They're more retail and service in nature, and that would be sort of the round peg in the round hole here. As it relates to this extension, we truly have had a tremendous setback as a result of COVID-19. When we were quite frustrated with the process towards the end of this last extension, having paid a substantial amount of money to get the extension. And when we came to the end of this and we were in discussions with Broward Health, and Broward Health started to sort of rip apart the ground lease structure and try to understand it, and then we went through various boards with Broward Health, various members of the board, we got to the point where seemed like we were making some progress, and COVID sort of put a halt on all their outside real estate efforts and the type of projects that we fell into. So we had been listed on their agenda and gone through the board for a hearing, but never quite got to the yes stage. So when we came to the city requesting an extension, we were really requesting an extension based on our inability to get anyone even out to look at the site. We understand the sense of urgency associated with this being our last request, and it was made clear to us that this is going to be our last request for an extension. My client understands that. It's not ideal for them, given the fact that they paid a substantial amount of money for the site initially, and then proceeded to make their land lease payments on a timely basis. In fact, the site reverting back to the city would be a very unsuccessful conclusion to what were years of effort. And again, I understand that the city has suffered some frustration with this, not seen it developed in the way they'd like to see it developed. But I will tell you that we've sincerely made efforts. We've engaged with Avison Young, one of the best brokers in the area. They know the particular area, and we've always expressed to Avison that we are very flexible as it relates to the type of tenant, as it relates to the type of initial investment that might be required to put a tenant in place here, and that we would remain flexible, transparent, and communicative with the city. So again, when we came back to the city for our extension in connection with this COVID-19 pandemic, we really weren't expecting to have to pay any extension fee. Mike spent some time talking with some of the commissioners and understanding some of the challenges that the city's been going through on a fiscal basis, and came back to us and asked that we offer something. So what we did is we went and reluctantly got approval because our client frankly was puzzled by the need to make a payment given the fact that this is a worldwide pandemic, and it's been the primary reason, at least for this last extension period, that we've been unable to get anyone out to the site to make a payment. And I was able to reluctantly get approval from the client to make a payment at the $46,000 level. So doubling that payment, I don't know quite how to react to that or why it's even appropriate to ask for that, given the fact that this is a legitimate request with a legitimate reason.
Can you answer my question from previous? I know you're saying the last year, or let's say 6 months with COVID has been your problem. What has been the problem the last 15 years before that?
Well, the problem's it's been multifaceted. It's been a round peg and a round hole problem. It's been the location of the site, the neighborhood it's adjacent to, the best and highest use of the site, again, is retail and service oriented. We've stuck to the guidelines and attempted to put a tenant in there that would be more of a job creation tenant and something that would be more attractive to the city of Deerfield, like a People's. And those tenants, the air is just a little thinner when you get to that tenant group. There's not as many of them out there, and from many of the tenant standpoints that we've showed the site to, it's just not been an ideal site. When you add to that the partnership that leased this site over the years had gone through its own machinations. There was a fraud involved. Our client emerged and ended up paying all of the bills left behind by a prior partner. And again, really was a good citizen and good corporate citizen throughout and did what they were supposed to do. It's made it somewhat difficult.
I'm going to pause you for a moment on that, as being a good corporate citizen. Paying your taxes and paying your payments on time, that to me is the bare minimum. If that makes you a good corporate citizen, that's the bare minimum. That's what's expected. What I didn't expect is probably 6 years ago when the city, as an elected official, had to come back to your client and say, could you please at least replace the rotted for sale sign that you had on the property that had been overgrown and was falling apart. Those are the types of things that make me not have confidence in what is being proposed at this late date and time, and this talk of this aggressive marketing campaign. I've been in office for a long time, and this property has not moved other than People's Choice, which came into play, and that was only in the last 5 years, 6 years. This has been 15 years of waiting for this, and it's disappointing to hear that your client, and it really goes to the heart of Commissioner Grosky's argument, is that your client says that he was reluctant to come up with this money because he didn't feel it was owed. That to me shows somebody who doesn't feel they have a lot of skin in the game, or at least shows an appreciation for the city of Deerfield Beach and what they put us through.
I think my client's always been willing to spend the money, and they have spent the money. And I agree with you that it's been a long road here as it relates to replacement of a rotted sign. Anything that's ever been brought to our attention has been remedied. When we're told, whether if someone doesn't tell us, our local contact doesn't tell us, shame on them. I mean, we've asked, last time that Avison Young gave us a heads up on something needing to be moved. Andrew Duffel mentioned that something needed, a sign needed to be moved. We moved it. We do what we need to do. It's not, you know, it's been a long road for everybody. I understand your frustration. We've done our best to bring tenants to the city, talk with the city about them, and we would continue to do that. It's our last extension. It's a legitimate request based on a legitimate reason, and we've offered to make the payment that was initially discussed. If something more than that is required, then we will certainly entertain it. We hadn't expected that.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Preston?
I'm in the unenviable position of actually having to consider the request. But I want to let the gentleman know that everything that my colleagues have said is accurate. And, but you made a comment as to why there haven't been any movement. And part of the comment was you said the community this is adjacent to. I think I know what that means. And I don't necessarily like it, but I know what you mean. Now, here's the other side of it, is that you're dealing with, a neighborhood that is economically starved. It's in need of business. It's in need of some, as I said earlier, for some business to come to the community that will be a benefit to the community. And if that were to happen, that would be a positive. But Commissioner Drotsky's request, sir, is not unfair. You haven't really come across in the years, and the comments that the mayor made as well are equally as valid. But as I said, it's a tough situation because my district needs businesses. They need someone to come in and, and this might, even though it would bother me if any one of my colleagues vote against you, I would be looking at it from that perspective, that it may work out for a community that needs a profitable business and a consideration. So that's where I am right now. Other than that, I want to let you know something, sir. My colleagues care about the community. They care about the city. And if I were to vote for you, it's, I do so with a struggle because I am drawn to them because the points that they made are, are valid. However, there are other challenges as well with the people that live in that community, and it has been there for such a long time. And I hate to gamble that somebody may come in and might be a benefit to the community, and I missed it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Commissioner Drosky.
To that extent, Commissioner Preston, I mean, I find the reluctance to pay the 2 times extension fee is nothing more than a bluff. I mean, if they were serious and they really wanted to go forward, they would be jumping up and down at this opportunity for a last extension by this commission. This is pennies to them, I know where the money, I think, based upon discussions, where the money comes from behind the scenes here, I mean, this is pennies on the dollar to them. They may not want to pay it. They may not be happy about it. But if you want to be a community partner in Deerfield Beach, this is what it's going to take to go forward. I don't see bending on this. I understand the economic development needs for your community, but we can do that as a city when we get this parcel back, if need be, going forward. I mean, this is something that, they need to show that they are a community partner going forward, because this is a year extension. The 6 months pre-COVID, there was no activity before that. You can use COVID as a cover for 6 months, but you cannot use COVID as a cover for 12 months. And that is what I'm going to hang my hat on. And we just need a yes or no from Mr. Egan at this point, whether he was willing to meet those 3 conditions to go forward.
So to respond to what you said, I agree that COVID is not a reason for not having gotten something done over the last several years or 10 years. But I will tell you that it has been a reason for not getting something done as a result of this extension, and during this extension period, I don't think anyone can deny that. That's real. As it relates to the extension payment, I'm not bluffing, and I didn't say my client wouldn't pay it. It was never suggested to my client that they would have to pay twice 46. I had a conversation with my client about the 46, and they agreed to pay it. They asked me to explain why they were being asked to pay it, given the fact that there was a legitimate reason to get an extension, and I explained to them that it had been requested, and they agreed. So at the end of the day, they did agree to pay the 46, and they haven't yet heard about the second 46. And perhaps when I share that information with them, they'll say, fine, we'll pay that to move forward. I'm not bluffing or saying that they won't pay it. I'm just saying I haven't had that discussion with them yet, and I'm prepared to have that discussion with them immediately, which would be tomorrow. As it relates to Commissioner Preston's comments, I agree with you, Commissioner. We would love to put a business in here that would benefit the surrounding area, that would create the jobs for Deerfield in general, and see the site developed. I have a development background. I like to see development. I don't like looking at vacant land year over year. So I'd like to see the site developed, and I'd like to see it developed in a way that Deerfield can be proud of what's out there, and we can be proud of what we accomplish. So that would be our goal. We would put a sincere effort into it. And when I tell you that we would be extremely flexible in terms of the people that we're working with and the economic deals that could be structured to bring someone to this site, we would be extremely flexible. So I appreciate your consideration. I appreciate that there is a long history here. I just share with you that it's a complicated history, and it's not one where people have neglected the site or not put the effort in. It's just been fraught with ups and downs.
Thank you, Commissioner Drosky, and then Vice Mayor Farnes.
Mr. City Attorney, this is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking of making a motion to approve the extension upon the conditions that the contract waivers that you find acceptable or agree to, that the $46,000 rent payment is made, and an equal contribution to the Neighbors Helping Neighbors. That if we don't get approval within 24 hours, then it's a no. Can we condition it that way? That condition approval upon them agreeing in 24 hours, otherwise it's a rejection.
So may I just interject something procedurally?
Yes, sir.
I can certainly start calling immediately and getting my client on the phone to get their consensus here and to have them agree to this. I also have, because we are a subtenant here to FARDA, we need FARDA to also approve this. So I would ask that you include in your conditions that in addition to getting our approval, that it would be subject to the FARDA approval. We're at this point waiting on FARDA to respond to a request for an ad hoc meeting. Their next board meeting, I believe, Mike, is on the 24th or the 26th. Is that correct?
I believe so. I'll double check right away.
And that's when they would hear this for their approval as well. Procedurally, they have to have it go before their board. We had asked if it could be approved without board approval, understanding that it was an extension of an existing contract. We spoke with George Pincus, their attorney, and Attorney Pincus advised us that it would need to go before the board, and we've always been transparent with FARDA and agreed that it would be subject to their approval. We understand that to be a condition.
Yeah, and it's the 26th, Jim.
Okay, so as much as I can get back to you with our, our yes on this thing in a shorter period of time, call it 24 to 48 hours, I'm subject to that time frame with FARDA for getting final approval.
Commissioner, I was going to recommend anyway, and I think I did at the outset, that FARDA be part of the one of the conditions. That is that FARDA agree. I mean, there's a little issue with the timing, given that August 22nd is the deadline. It sounds like FARDA's meeting is after that, but I think you could still make these subject to these conditions. And the reality is, it's probably going to take me a couple of days to negotiate and formalize an amendment to the existing agreement. if this is what the commission's direction is.
Vice Mayor Parnas, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I could agree to this under the following conditions. One, they agree to pay the amounts that we requested. And two, that it gets approved by the board. Otherwise, the lease is hereby terminated. If by the 26th, so what we're extending for them to meet all our conditions is between now and 9 days from now, or 10 days.
Well, Commissioner Drosky, you have a motion. You putting the motion forward?
I am. I'll make a motion to approve the extension, provided that FARDA and DRP both approve the contract waivers as required by the city attorney, 1. 2, that a extension fee in the amount of $46,406.17 be tendered to the city of Deerfield Beach. And 3, that an equal amount of $46,406.17 be paid into the city's Helping Neighbors program, all by August 26th. Otherwise, the request for extension is denied.
And if I may, Commissioner Drosky, because the first one was about waiving the future extension. So if you could add the fourth one being that FARDA approves the actual extension itself, as opposed to.
I guess I lumped those together, but in initial, but so then yes.
So can I,
approves as well.
I'm sorry, just from a procedural standpoint again, Michael, did you say the FARDA meeting's on the 26th?
It's on the 26th, yes.
Can I ask that the board have the fees due by the 27th, just so from a practical standpoint, we just have the time to get the monies wired? We'll get the wiring instructions, we'll get things teed up. I don't want to get caught with 10 hours and not get the money to you. I mean, I'm asking for the extra day just to facilitate the wire of funds.
So approval by midnight on August 26th, payment by midnight, August 27th.
Yes, thank you for that.
Second.
Motion for Commissioner Drosky, a second by Vice Mayor Parnas. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Drosky,
Yes.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Parnas,
Yes.
Mayor Gant.
No.
You're now at comments by mayor and city commission.
Gentlemen, by the way, thank you very much. And sorry for the delay that we had there. We'll go with District 1.
Thank you. First, of course, we have voting tomorrow. So please, everybody, take advantage of your right as a United States citizen and vote in the primary and the elections. Quiet Waters food distribution is this Friday, 12:30 to 1 o'clock. I'm sorry, 9:30 to 12 at Quiet Waters. So please, those of you who are in need, please come by and see us. Census, the U.S. Census Bureau announced that all counting efforts for the census door-to-door canvassing, online, telephone, and mail-in responses will stop on Wednesday, September 30th, which is 1 month earlier than originally planned. The average response rate for Broward County cities is 59%. Deerfield Beach's current response rate is 37.7%, which is the third lowest in the county. Our 2010 responses rate was 72%. So please, this is extremely important to the city. Assistance for residents. The city rental, mortgage, and utility assistance program for residents impacted by COVID-19 began today. The application is on the city website. The program will provide a one-time payment of up to $5,000 per household for past due rental or mortgage and utility costs. One-time assistance will be in the form of a grant and does not require repayment. So please take advantage of that if you are indeed in need. COVID-19 testing. Since inception, the testing at the site at Oviedo McKeithen on June 8th, a total of 16,930 individuals have been tested by the Department of Health, which is an average of 353 a day. The Deerfield Beach testing site has been extended through Monday, August 31st. Testing is available Monday through Saturday from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. As of August 13th, 1,800 cases of positive results have been through in Deerfield Beach residents. And that's all I have for today, sir.
Thank you. District 2.
Mayor, it's with a very sad heart that that I bring this news. One of my employees that was with the city for over 30 years, Fred Scott, lost his son about a week ago. It's been very, very tough for the family. And I just think that you know, when we have people who've committed their so much of their lives to our city, that we need to remember that, you know, when they leave, it shouldn't be that they just leave. So I'm gonna ask that the city manager reach out to the family and really let them know how the commission feels, and that we are there, and if there's anything that we can do to assist them as they go through this process, I want them to know that we're there. Fred was an outstanding employee, just did a great job, and to lose a child is just so tragic. The next thing is I want to thank this commission and all of staff who called me about my son, and there were so many constituents as well, and residents actually from the other districts. So this is really for everyone. When I told everyone that my son had gone through the COVID-19 process, that he in fact had the virus, I am happy to report that he has completely recovered. He has had 2 negative tests, which now will allow him to go back to work. So to all of you who took the time to pray and to call me, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much. It means so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And right now, Mayor, I have a very short video that I would like to share with the commission. I don't know if Heather can bring that up. And once it starts, I want you to look at it very carefully. It's very short. And look at that, okay? But look at where the water is coming from. That's out of an electrical outlet. That's an electrical box there that you're looking at. And that is absolute ridiculous. Now, if I told you that we had a resident in our city with that sort of, if you saw that, you should be upset. If I told you that a business had it, you should be upset. But you know where that came from? That's from one of our fire stations. That's unacceptable. That's just totally unacceptable. Somebody's going to get hurt. So we need to address that situation. That's from one of our fire stations after a rain. Our fire stations are deteriorating. and it needs attention. And I just wanted you to see that. And so something that we definitely need to talk about. That's it for me, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. And we're really glad to hear that your son's doing that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Another father whose son survived as well, Vice Mayor.
Yes, my son was stricken a few months ago and recovered. First, I want to thank the commission for changing the date to tonight instead of tomorrow for our meeting. I really feel that it's important that we give every citizen an opportunity to vote, and that those of us that are active have the opportunity to help people to vote. Second, I'm having a District 3 meeting next Monday night. If any of you commissioners and the mayor would like to attend, you can call Erica tomorrow and she will give you the link. It's at 7 o'clock Monday night. And I'm hoping to have 150 to 200 people attend via Zoom. And we hope for a big turnout. Other than that, I want to praise Code. They have been working diligently to clean up bulk. Our security system here in Century Village sends them pictures every day of violators with the addresses, and Code is right on it. And there's been a big improvement in bulk throughout the city because of their work. So the gentleman we hired a year ago or so to just handle bulk is doing an excellent job. And it was well worth the expenditure of the city to make us not look like a junkyard. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. I have a couple of things, and when we talked about the
Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, you forgot Commissioner Drosky.
Oh, I was hoping to. I was really hoping to spare us. All right, Commissioner, District 4.
All right, I spoke so much on the last item, I thought I was just being overlooked, so.
You got your word quota for the night.
Well, you're lucky because I don't have much on my list for this evening. But first of all, I want to thank my colleagues for approving the Pioneer Park boat ramp, repairs, for applying for the grant and also for the design services. A resident of mine, District 4, sent me some pictures today, ironically, of the pier with several of the planks actually missing. So it's becoming more of a dangerous condition than it was before. So tonight's approval was none too soon. So thank you for doing that. In addition, the Florida Department of Transportation continues to have individual meetings with communities throughout Deerfield Beach, District 4 in particular. If you're a resident in one of those communities, please pay attention, please participate in the webinars that are going on, and please ask questions, and please let the mayor and myself and Commissioner Parnas know your thoughts and opinions. It's actually very helpful to hear from the residents, to know your opinions and thoughts on this subject. It's something that's not going away anytime soon. It's only heating up, and so I just ask you to please participate when your time is called and you have the opportunity to do so. They're very informative and they may be very eye-opening, and so please participate. Commissioner Preston, my thoughts, again, go out to you and your son that he made a full recovery. I said so at the last meeting, and it's always good to hear when people are in safe hands. So that's good. Certainly good news. Yes. And last but not least, September 5th, even though it's a holiday weekend, nobody's going anywhere, at least I'm not. So I will have my Saturday office hours as planned. It's by Zoom or telephone. So I'll still be having them on September 5th. You can reach out to me directly or to City Hall. They'd be happy to schedule it. I think 2 of the 4 appointments are already filled up. So, but of course, you're always welcome to email, text, or call me. In the meantime, you don't have to wait to my Saturday office hours. That's just if you have something else on your mind that you want to spend some time on. If that's all I have, tomorrow's primary election day. Go vote. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. And sorry for skipping over you, sort of. I want to thank Commissioner Hudak for bringing up the point about our census. Our numbers are extremely embarrassing at this point, to be honest with you. It's frustrating because it's not that we haven't put in a heck of an effort to try to get this to happen. It just hasn't happened. We can't really blame COVID because this isn't a matter of someone having to go there. You can do it from your home. You can do it either by mail or online. And now we have the census takers are actually going door to door, and they will go to your door up to 6 times to see if they can get that count. This is not something that people should fear. These records are sealed for over 70 years. They're completely confidential. I actually spoke directly with Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross last week about this, and he was calling the mayors of the cities in the United States, not just Broward County, but the United States, whose numbers were below a certain percentage in response rate. We are a little bit frustrated by what we feel is some of the assistance from not only the federal government, but the local government as well. I do know that our staff here has done a heck of a job in trying to get the word out, but we need to do more. All of us can do better, and we need to constantly talk about the census. It's very, very important. Before anybody decides to point fingers and say it's certain segments of the community that aren't responding, my conversation with Secretary Ross showed that the limited numbers that they have and they can share shows it's not just certain pockets that we have within the city that have a very low response rate. It's really the city overall. You'll find it everywhere from District 4 to the shore. So we can do a much better job with that. I really hope we do, and we need to do it because it's very important. It helps this city for the next decade when it comes to how much money we get in for some of the different programs that are out there and really helping us address some of the needs that we have. It's very, very important. This is not a political thing. This is apolitical. We just need your assistance to respond to the census. It's simple, it's easy, and it's confidential. So please help us with that. We'd really appreciate that. I am really sorry to hear about Fred Scott's son. That is terrible, terrible news. And my heartfelt sympathy goes out to the Scott family. I don't like to bring this up, but quite frankly, I think at this point it needs to be brought up. And I want at least my entire commission to be aware of this. Full disclosure, I had a brief comment with some of the board members over at least a board member from the Housing Authority. But a month ago, I received a Google alert about the city of Deerfield Beach, in which it had stated in 2 articles that the director of our housing authority here in Deerfield Beach, Dr. Jarman, was selected as the interim director for the housing authority in Little Rock, Arkansas. Now, I know she had previously applied for this position and she declined the position at the end. So I thought perhaps this was outdated information. I would assume that something like that would eventually kind of make it around to us. What became troublesome is that I realized that it wasn't well known out there. As a matter of fact, initially, someone on the board who I spoke with told me that it was old news and that was inaccurate. So I let it lie. And then I looked into it some more. And indeed, even 5 days ago, and you go and look at a news article, it lists Dr. Jarman as the interim director of the Little Rock Housing Authority. I have a hard time with that. Dr. Jarman does an outstanding job, I feel, but this is concerning for me. And I don't know how someone can dedicate full time to our housing authority here in the city of Deerfield Beach and also do the same thing for a housing authority in Little Rock, Arkansas. I believe they're having a public meeting on it this week regarding it. I don't care for the lack of information that has come out of the housing authority regarding this. As a matter of fact, the board member I spoke to initially said that it was just, she was just doing some consulting. Well, that's not the case. She's the interim director of the Little Rock Housing Authority. I don't see how you can pull double duty on that. I've asked the city attorney to look into it, and we're going to continue to push forward on that. I don't want our residents here to be on the short end of the stick. So hopefully that will be resolved soon. I hope Dr. Jarman stays with us, but actually after all of this, I think the commission itself and the city is due an explanation. With that, I ask all of you to please continue to be safe, continue to wear a mask. We want to get ourselves back to where we were before all of this. We're a long ways off from that, but we're a lot closer than where we were. The numbers are flattening out here, but that does not mean we should let our guards down. It is still very serious. It is still life-threatening, and it is still out there. So sooner we can get our businesses back and our life back, the better off we will all be, but it's not going to happen until we all follow the rules. I will say this also, I received an impassioned plea from someone from the VFW. And if you think about VFWs, while we know a lot of them, in many ways, are social clubs. Bars have been banned, we know that. But there are certain groups and certain organizations that have, that this goes beyond just a financial thing. It also has to do with the mental health of a lot of their patrons, the people that go there. And, you know, not being a veteran, but having many veterans in my family, I know what that camaraderie is like. It was a very impassioned plea today. And I hope that we figure out a way that we can start getting some of these places open with restrictions. So not everyone is left out in the cold. With that, I ask everybody to be safe. Please get out and vote tomorrow. It's an honor and a privilege, and it's something we shouldn't take for granted. So be safe, and that's all I have to say.
You too, Mayor, and the rest of the commission and staff, you guys be safe.
Thank you.
Motion to close.
Motion.
Second.
Motion from the Vice Mayor, seconded by Commissioner Preston. All in favor, say aye.
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 Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Guess we're done.